Today's story begins with loud exclamations, an admiring wah, that echoed throughout the area of one magnificent palace. The little girl, without taking her admiring eyes off, called Adelia very beautiful. The girl also thought that today she looked simply irresistible. The little girl asked if she had already met Lucian. The older brother would faint when he saw her, and the girl replied that she had not yet, because the bride and groom should not see each other before the wedding. "Aren't you worried?" the girl asked, because she herself was worried. The girl replied that, of course she was worried, and even more than she expected, her heart was beating wildly. Then the baby extended her arms to her to calm her down. She is sure that today Adelia will shine brightest and everyone will envy her, and if something happens, it will only benefit her. The girl opened her eyes wide at the baby's unexpected gesture. Smiling brightly and sincerely, she thanked her for the support she had shown her. Adelia could not take her beautiful eyes off this baby and could not help but be surprised. How can this young Princess Ariana be so cute? Her hair was so beautiful that it directly resembled soft pink cotton candy. And her eyes, they shine such a bright red color like luminous rubies. And her cheeks are so soft like fluffy marshmallows that you just want to bite them. Adelia still can't believe that she and Princess Ariana will soon become a family. It all seems like just a dream to her. Adelia and Ariana were having a nice conversation and having fun. Soon there was a knock on the door, which meant it was time to go. It was Adelia's long-awaited appearance, and she didn't seem nervous at all. The large hall was beautifully decorated in honor of such a solemn and significant event. A red carpet was laid out on the floor, and the thick scent of flowers hung in the air. The girls who were in this room whispered in a frenzy of admiration for the beauty of the emerging bride. The men were jealous that such beauty was not theirs. A tall, stately man led his beautiful bride to the altar. This incredibly beautiful couple, attracting all eyes, approached the priest waiting for them. In the front row sat the most important guests, a dark-haired teenage boy, an older man with the same dark hair, and Ariana, who was the most happy. Adelia took a rather decisive step into their family. "Let us begin the sacred wedding ceremony under God's protection," the clergyman proclaimed. Adelia did not expect to become crown princess so soon. By the way, her husband is very handsome. Not that she was surprised by this. The girl grinned at her thoughts. Still, we are talking about this imperial family. Adelia felt as if she were in a garden full of beautiful flower boys, and dreaming, she did not hear the clergyman ask her a question. The old man's delicate cough brought the girl out of her reverie, and she yelped in fear. The future husband asked her to answer, and the clergyman repeated the question. Does she swear, Adelia Vita, to change her surname and take Lucian Callum Decrack as her lawful husband? And the girl answered in the affirmative. Then please sign this contract. The old man handed her the paper. She is no longer Adelia Vita, but Adelia Rebecca Decrack. Once a drop of blood sprinkles this contract, they will finally become legal husband and wife. A drop of the man's blood fell on the line with his name. Now it's the girl's turn to sign, and she extended her finger to the special bird. One small prick and a red drop appeared on the index finger. A bloody signature covered the name on the paper, but Adelia opened her eyes in shock, where her name should have been written Kimbada. Where did this name come from? The girl was seized with panic, but as soon as she blinked, Adelia Rebecca Decrack was written on the paper again. What was it? Adelia thought tensely. What if she was discovered? The ceremony continued, but the girl's thoughts were far away. It immediately disappeared without anyone noticing, and she tried to concentrate on the wedding. She closed her eyes, bringing her feelings and heartbeat into order. I name Lucian Callum Decrack and Adelia Rebecca Decrack, husband and wife, blessed by God himself, echoed throughout the hall, and the girl opened her eyes. South Korea, year 2023. Kim Bada, a 28-year-old girl. She worked as a developer in a small company, and one evening, as always, she stayed late working in the office. Suddenly, a drop of blood fell on the keyboard, then a second, a third. The girl did not understand what happened, why her nose started bleeding out of the blue. Then the whole world went blurry, and the girl fainted from exhaustion. And when she opened her eyes, she became Adelia Vita, a minor character who was destined to die in her favorite novella, The Princess Preparation Diaries. It can't be. I can't believe it. The girl stared dumbfoundedly at her face in the mirror. I am Adelia, the same Adelia who dies of cardiac arrest without a single line of dialogue. She is not just some minor character, but someone who is destined to die, and with zero importance to the story. Isn't The Princess Prep Diaries supposed to be a happy story about a princess being loved by her family? Hell, of all the characters, why was she destined to wake up as Adelia? It looks like she'll die as soon as she was reborn. The girl's hands crumpled the sheets in impotent anger. That's why it's always like this in her life. Why it's always her? These were questions without answers. But she did not want to die. The girl resolutely refused to face another miserable death. "Pull yourself together, Kimbata," she said to herself. "This is not the time to mope." She quickly got out of bed and went to the table. It's unclear how it all happened, but she needs to write down the story before she forgets it. Without thinking twice, the girl opened the notebook and took hold of the pen. The Dakrek Empire, a divine force, an evil genius. She tried not to miss anything, while at the same time thinking that there must be some way out. Suddenly, an idea came into her head. In the original story, the villain had incredible power, the greatest in this world. White magic. If only she could use it. She wants to live at least once for her own happiness, even if in someone else's body. Adelia is confident that she can find this strength and will definitely take advantage of her chance at life. So in order to survive, the girl decided to take possession of white magic before the villain in history. In the dead of night, with the moon shining brightly, she went to a mysterious place. This is the place that was described in the novel. Step by step, the girl walked the entire cave. And she ran into the wall. This was the end of the cave. But she is sure that the villain in the novel was talking about her. "I want to find an ability that would combine the greatest power of light and the source of all power on earth," she said. There was a deafening roar, and a door appeared right in front of her, as if woven from bright sunlight. "Who are you?" came a question from behind the door. And the girl replied that she was Adelia Vita, although in the first seconds, the voice seemed strange to her. "It's strange," the voice continued. "It seems like there's something more in you." As she thought, the Guardian of Light is able to see the true essence of a person. Two huge, yellow, ominous eyes appeared right in front of the girl. "Kimbata," said the voice, and the girl clenched her fists. But she had already prepared for everything. She had nothing to fear. So she calmly answered that that was her original name. The guard was surprised. 2 names. Maybe she was blessed by the Lord himself. But the girl defiantly replied that perhaps he would be able to understand this as soon as he met her in person, which obviously interested him, since the guard allowed her to enter, and the door opened heavily. The girl took a few steps forward, surprised by the view that greeted her. Throughout the large hall, here and there, lay piles of gold, jewelry, and other valuable items, and in the middle rested a sacred sword. The girl could not hide her surprised exclamation, "Wow, I wonder how much money there is here. Are you more interested in these simple gold coins than the sacred sword or me?" the guard asked with contempt. "What a stupid little man." After these words, the girl's eyes opened in bright light and surprise. A huge golden glowing wolf stood in front of her. Well, what else did he expect from a person? She asked the guard with a bit of irony. And the wolf continued that too much time had passed since he last met any of the people. He is a creature known as the Guardian of Light. "What brings you here?" he asked the girl. "Come on," Adelia answered quietly. "You already know why I'm here." "Guardian of the Light," she said, smiling and extending her hand. "Please grant me white magic." No one gets to choose their parents, and she was no exception. Her mother died giving birth to her, and her father blamed her for everything and constantly raised his hand against her, calling her a parasite. Every day was a living hell, and the princess training diaries were the only ray of hope that kept her from giving up. The main character had a wonderful life. Everyone loved her. Little Kimbata held on to the hope that maybe one day she could live like a princess. But her life was cut short so absurdly. And when she miraculously woke up in the body of the heroine of her favorite short story, she thought that God had finally given her a chance. She believed that she could live at least once a normal life in a loving family. And her faith in this became more and more every day. Exactly until the moment she found out that the owner of this body lived the same terrible life as her. Amelia lost her birth mother, Countess Vita, at a young age. And after the Count brought home his mistress and her children, she became a minor character, abused by her family. She was beaten so that no traces were left, and even Count Vita asked the family to make sure that there were no traces before playing with the girl, otherwise they would not be able to sell her. Little Adelia was treated very poorly. A life full of abuse ended in a miserable death. Such was the fate of Adelia Vita. But if she gets white magic, she will be able to live the life she wants even in such a body. "No," the guard interrupted her, "you can't get white magic." Adelia did not expect such a categorical answer. The guardian continued, "Does she really think that she can really accept white magic in her current physical state? It is impossible." The girl began to assure that she could, if only he would give her a chance. "No, you can't," the guard said firmly, "so stop wasting my time and leave, and never meddle here again." Adelia could not believe that she was not able to accept white magic, and therefore had to leave, because she was not even allowed to try. but was already being asked to surrender. She was never given a single chance. She was simply born weak, always too young, powerless. The realization that she could never do anything fell over the girl like a dark veil. But now there is a chance, and it's just a stone's throw away. I refuse to give up like this, the girl firmly decided. The Guardian of Light, who was watching her thoughts with interest, exhaled heavily. It seemed that the stupid little man with a vulnerable heart believed that her fragile body was suitable for white magic. No, forget about strength, otherwise you will only die from the side effects. Simply put, such a weakling like you, the guard began. But they didn't let him finish, unceremoniously calling him a dog. The Guardian of Light was taken aback by surprise. How dare she address him like that? But the girl interrupted him again, firmly saying that maybe because he was an animal, he had no manners at all. The guard's powerful paw hit the ground with tremendous force. He became angry, ordering the man to shut up. He asked how dare such a lowly creature talk to him like that. The girl mockingly asked if he was really thinking of attacking her. But she is almost sure that the Guardian of Light cannot harm people. He was hurt that she knew this. The Guardian of Light is an immortal being who protects the power of white magic. From the very beginning, he was created taking into account the fact that he could not harm people. Any fan of the novel knows this simple fact, the girl thought, and self-confidently invited the guard to try if he wanted. The wolf couldn't believe that the person who entered here for the first time in the last 300 years turned out to be such an arrogant fool. She probably needed white magic for her own stupid reasons. "I'm going to die soon," he heard, and his ears involuntarily perked up, ready to listen. Adelia didn't even have the power to escape this fate, so she just wants to try to extend her lifespan with white magic, and maybe get revenge on a few more humans along the way. Everyone who came earlier gave different reasons. Unite the whole world, become a god and rule everything, build a new empire. But her reason seems the most realistic and honest he's ever heard. "And one more thing," the girl added, "she will achieve such an authority that will free her from all looks down on her, so that she can live as she pleases." And when the guard asked if she wanted to win the throne, Adelia explained that while she did temporarily plan to become part of the imperial family, this was not the authority that she planned to gain. She means something that everyone respects equally: money. She no longer wants to be miserably used or treated like an object. Now Adelia will begin to live happily and do what she wants. The Guardian liked her ambition, but asked what she would offer him in exchange for white magic. He was imprisoned here forever, protecting white magic, so he must be interested in the outside world, Adelia thought, and said that this would probably be the best thing he had ever received. She will let him see her memories, because no one in this world can see her memories. Grunting disdainfully, the guard invited her to look around. This is what people offered in exchange for white magic, and she offered some kind of memories, and not for full possession, but just to look. But the girl was sure that her memories would entertain him much more than any other person, because she used her first name in her previous life. She can guarantee that he's never seen anything like them, so she'll just show them off instead of giving them away. The guard wondered if there really was something there that he had never seen. Then it would be a fair deal, but how could he trust it? Adelia sighed heavily. She was going to show them to him personally, since he is a guardian of light and all that, because these are priceless memories. He was convinced that the girl wanted to show her memories to him on purpose. Are they really so priceless? And Adelia confirmed this. They are one of a kind. Okay, since you insist so much, the guard even wagged his tail with pleasure and seemed to blush a little. But remember, he warned the girl, white magic has the power of purification, and you can use it like ordinary magic, especially for healing and protection. However, she is different from other people, so there will be side effects, and Adelia asked if they could kill her outright. But the guard replied that most likely everything would not be so terrible. "Great, until I die," the girl beamed. "You really are a strange person." The guard leaned his head against the girl's forehead. He decided to trust her, because he was very curious about what kind of white magician she would become. The Guardian of Light transmitted white magic to Adelia. She felt it as something warm and pleasant, and everything around was illuminated with a soft light. Opening her eyes, the girl felt different. She finally became a white magician. This may only be a temporary solution for Adelia's weak body, but as long as she has this power, she cannot be harmed either by poison or physically. Those people won't be able to hurt her anymore. Looking into the girl's memories, the guard really found things there that he had not seen before, and they exceeded all his expectations. There should be enough to keep him entertained for the next 500 years. But one memory particularly impressed him. Is this really her past life? He thought she was just an arrogant little person, but it turns out she had a difficult past behind her. He took a step towards the girl. Their contract will be concluded as soon as she gives him a name. Adelia was surprised that the guard wanted to get a name. She did not remember this in the original story. But the wolf explained that since she is an unstable creature, she needs a special approach, so he will serve her as his master. And she will be able to call on him whenever she wants, and if she gets into trouble, he will be able to help her. As soon as the contract comes into force, they will be bound to each other. The girl thought about it, assuming that this would only benefit her, and she agreed to sign a contract. While choosing a name, she asked how he found the name Kai. Kai, the guard repeated. In the ancient language, it means ocean. Great, now my name is Kai, the guard proudly announced, shrinking to the size of an ordinary wolf. I like it, master, he added. Adelia put her hand on his head patronizingly, showing the seriousness of the moment. But in the next second, everything changed. Then, can I take a couple of gold coins here? The girl's eyes became like banknotes. Kai sighed tiredly, but allowed it. And when the girl indiscriminately began to shovel everything she saw into the bag, he was indignant that it was only a couple of coins, no more. After some time, Adelia remembered that he was talking about some side effects from white magic. Well, Kai began. The whole story took some time, and the girl listened to him carefully. At one point, she was surprised and even a little scared. But in the end, I came to terms with the fact that this could happen. After all, the zone will not die from these side effects. Let's go. I need to do something. Adelia headed towards the exit. Kai was interested in where they would go and assumed that it was to her home. But the girl answered negatively they were going, as Adelia put it, to make money. 3 years later. And the last lot for today, the presenter loudly announced, it was personally presented. Here the man paused for a long time, by the owner of this auction house and the head of Eileen Marie. The audience froze in admiration, but soon whispers spread throughout the hall. This is the rarest thing in the history of trading in this auction house, and it is none other than a stone of white magic, found for the first time in the last 300 years. The presenter pulled back the cover that hid such a valuable lot, and the stone sparkled in all its splendor. The whispers in the hall intensified, and the presenter suggested starting with 100 gold pieces. Immediately, the first hand flew into the air, followed by a second, a third, and soon the price reached 500 gold. The first stone of white magic in the last 300 years, the long-haired man in the mask said thoughtfully. And then he raised his hand with a sign denoting a super important person, naming an incredible amount, 5,000 gold. Everyone present in the hall simultaneously let out an indignant sigh and stared at him. The man, it would seem, did not notice the glances directed at him, as did his neighbor in the same mask, as if they were spending such amounts every day. Sweating mercilessly, the presenter asked if anyone would give more, but there were no takers, and then, starting the countdown, he finally announced sold. The long-haired man did not expect that the stone of white magic would be taken out, and there are only 2 explanations for this. Either the head is familiar with the white magician, or he himself is one. Lucian, I will leave the head of Eileen to you, he gave an order to his neighbor. He had to find him and bring him to him. I understand, Your Majesty, the young man said, taking off his mask. After this auction, many newspapers published articles under the questioning heading, Who is the head of Eileen? The Eileen Trading Company suddenly appeared in the Empire 3 years ago, thanks to their selection of rare items, unique advertising methods, and a capable deputy chief. They are considered the 4th most powerful faction in the Empire. But the only thing known about their boss is that her name is Marie. Who is this Marie? Some people suggest that the deputy chief may actually be the real boss. What could be the point in this? The enraged man angrily threw the newspaper. How dare they associate someone like me with our magnificent leader? He is just her pathetic slave. He lamented that reporters couldn't even distinguish fact from rumor, but then he noticed a girl enter the room who told him not to worry about it and just ignore it. Head! The man shouted joyfully and rushed towards the girl, thereby frightening her. Lifting her into the air, he happily said that he missed her very much, not paying attention to the girl's demands to put her in her place, because she had already said that this made her dizzy. Having obeyed, the man returned her to the ground. Indignant at how the assistant wasn't tired of doing this every time he saw her, the girl tried to catch her breath and listened to the delight that just one look at her gave him so much joy. Adelia took off her cloak, sat down at the table, and demanded to know how the auction went. As she wanted, the emperor won the bet on the white magic stone, and he also ordered the crown prince to seize the head. And rumors began to circulate that the head of Eileen was a white magician. By the way, the assistant was also interested in where she got this white magic stone from. Smiling, the girl said that she made it herself. The assistant nodded understandingly. But then the meaning of what was said dawned on him, and he literally fell into awe. too loudly, so much so that Adelia had to cover her ears with her hands. The man asked if she really was a white magician. He felt betrayed. How could she keep such a big secret from him for all the years they spent together? And why did she reveal herself now? If she had been hiding it all this time, the question was asked literally right to her face. The girl answered with a sigh that her plan was for this stone to end up in the hands of the emperor, and demanded that the assistant move away from her face. And in general, stop making a fuss here. It's better for him to book time for her to visit a clothing store. She will need to attend the imperial ball. Why, the man was surprised. Adelia handed him a letter of invitation. The purpose of the upcoming ball is to choose the future crown princess, so only high-ranking nobles can attend the ball. Wait a minute, the meaning of what was happening slowly dawned on the man. Are you really a noblewoman? Yes, Adelia was indeed a noblewoman, the daughter of a count, to be precise. It seemed to her that she was telling the assistant about this, but his whole appearance indicated that he was hearing about it for the first time and was quite shocked. The girl continued that her real name was Adelia Vita. The man remembered that Vita is the family to whom their company regularly sends money, and the girl froze warily. They owe so much money that they will not be able to pay it off, even with all their assets combined. In fact, he found it strange that the head never asked them to return a single cent, and now it is clear that it is because they are her family. Adelia allowed him to think what he wanted and hurried him to book a visit to the store under her real name. But the assistant had one more question, which the girl didn't like much. Noticing her cold gaze, he became a little embarrassed and promised that it was really the last one. "Be brave," the girl said sternly. He was interested in the reason why the head offered the white magic stone to the emperor and planned to attend the imperial ball. "That's right," Adelia answered. "She wants to become the crown princess." It seemed to him that it would be difficult to surprise him with anything. Where did such an idea suddenly come to her mind? She herself said that she was a noblewoman, and many would envy her current life. "The nobles are also not completely free," Adelia answered simply. "A girl of noble blood is either given in marriage, or she spends her whole life obeying the head of her family. She cannot live like this, but wants to have a title and lead her own family." The assistant thought, if this is her goal, then indeed, becoming the crown princess is the best way to change the situation. Besides, if she later gets divorced, then she will then have a title and be considered a former part of the imperial family. Of course, she will always be able to get rid of Count Vita. Her abilities will be recognized, and she will be able to become the head of the family in his place. Unfortunately, getting recognition even as the head of Eileen is already quite difficult. But if she can become the crown princess, then destroying the Vita family will be easy and simple. And more importantly, she will be able to meet Princess Ariana. A satisfied grin appeared on the girl's face. That's right, since she ended up in this book, shouldn't she at least get to meet her favorite heroine? Her grin startled the assistant who was watching the chief, and he called out to her quietly. Pretending that nothing had happened, Adelia announced that she planned to make a deal with the crown prince. In response to the assistant's fair doubts whether His Highness would agree, she noted that she would offer him the rights to trade in white magic stones. It turns out that she just wants to blame all the boring diplomatic problems on him, the man realized. "You're so smart," Adelia noted with a smile. "That's why I like you." They are a private company, so they often have to deal with piles of documents when exporting white magic stones. But the imperial family does not need to do all this, and she is sure that they will accept this offer without thinking twice. The assistant stood silently, amazed at the head's train of thought. She's incredible. Much younger than him, but already thinking about the future. "Okay, Coland, since the chatter is over, it's time to get back to work," Adelia said, thereby bringing the assistant out of his stupor. Sighing heavily, the man said that her poor slave was ready to work hard again. It will be interesting to see how this company will develop. He's even a little scared to think about all this. There was commotion in the office, and mountains of books and documents were piled up. "Didn't I tell you to drop all other matters and concentrate on finding the head of Eileen?" The prince sternly reprimanded his subordinates. And yet, not only did they not find him, but they didn't even know anything about him out of anger. He crumpled the sheet he was holding in his hand. The subordinates asked for forgiveness from His Highness. They found a deputy not far from the auction hall, but he disappeared in the blink of an eye. They believe he disappeared using an artifact. What a sneaky rat, His Highness was furious. The head of Eileen had already used many rare artifacts. This means that next to him, there is definitely a white magician who knows how to create these same artifacts. Now it's clear how he manages to hide every time. The last white magician was the first Emperor Dekrak, thanks to whom prosperity reigned on the continent. And now, 300 years later, another white magician has appeared, which means he will also have a huge impact on the entire empire. The imperial family must find him first, and to ensure that he is on their side, they will have to make him an imperial magician. But the knights reported something else, the rumor that the head of Eileen, a white magician, has already spread throughout the continent. Now it worries not only the people of Dekrak, residents of other empires are also looking for him. Unrest will begin soon, the prince said thoughtfully. He gave the order to continue the search. They must find the white magician before the enemies do. It does not matter whether they try to attract him to them or threaten him. This magician must be on their side, and if all else fails, then he will have to kill. Yes, your highness, the men reported and bowed. Then they left, leaving the prince alone in the room. In his opinion, it would be easier if a magician could be bought like nobles. Looking at the white stone purchased at auction, he thought that the principles of the white magician were only making their life more difficult. He swore to himself that this time he would look into the face of this great white magician. The day of the imperial ball has arrived. Adelia stood aside and watched the Vita family get together. Lobelia Vita, the second daughter of Count Vita, twirled around in front of her father, asking how she looked and whether she could attract the attention of the crown prince. The count assured that his dear Lobelia would be the first beauty at the ball, to which his wife asked how she was. The count replied that their daughter was so beautiful only because she was everything like her mother. You got ready early, Adelia noted, thereby drawing the count's attention to the fact that she had also arrived. Lobelia, as well as her mother, Countess Vita, were not very pleased with the appearance of Adelia, nor with the fact that she was also going to the ball with them, and they only hoped that she would not disgrace their family, from which the girl only helplessly clenched her fists, forced to listen to this addressed to her. But the most unpleasant words were said by the count, noting that the girl looked better than the last time they saw each other, and apparently, he could earn more from her than he expected. Adelia remembered that around this time, according to the plot of the book, her heroine was sold to some old count. Get into the last carriage. Don't disgrace us at the ball, just sit quietly in the corner, the count said with disgust. The girl obediently agreed. She just needed to be patient. It was better not to attract attention. But before she had time to get into the carriage, someone's hand reached out to her. The young man brazenly grabbed the girl, not allowing her to move. He squeezed the girl's wrist painfully, forcing her to look at him. Long time no see, he grinned brazenly. And when Adelia asked to let her go, he only squeezed her wrist tighter, noting that he had not seen her beautiful face for a long time, so there was no need to look at it like that. The guy's gaze tenaciously swept over the girl's face and figure. He noticed that she was eating well and living happily, and overall looked very good. I said, "Let me go, you disgusting pervert." Adelia forcefully freed herself from his grip. David Vita, the eldest son of Count Vita, raised his hands in a conciliatory gesture and asked not to frighten him. Every time Adelia remembers how he used the influence of his family to abuse another innocent girl, she immediately wants to put him behind bars. Adelia turned around and headed into the carriage destined for her. But such a scoundrel deserves much worse punishment. Just wait, the girl thought. She would protect them all straight to hell with her own hands. The imperial palace sparkled, ready for a grand reception. Ladies and gentlemen had fun and socialized in anticipation of the imperial family. Adelia stood aside, not participating in the general noise, and also waited. The bell rang, and it was announced that His Majesty the Emperor and His Highness the Crown Prince had arrived. At the same time, firm steps were heard in the hall, and the girl's gaze sharpened. Two, without exaggeration, gorgeous men majestically walked through the hall to their seats. They sat down in their assigned seats. The throne of the emperor and his eldest son stood on a dais from which the entire hall was visible, in which all noise had died down from the moment of their appearance. May God bless the shining sun of our empire, those present said in one voice, and bowed respectfully before the rulers. Everything is like in the book. Adelia watched from the side with a glass of wine in her hands. In the original plot of the book, only the emperor and the crown prince came to the ball, who pointed out every shameful act of the families of all the girls present at the ball and threatened not to take the title of crown princess lightly. It is not surprising that he will be considered a tyrant. So, it's time, the girl decided, and put the glass on the table. She lightly touched her hair, creating magic. She ran her hand from the roots to the ends of the strand, from which its appearance acquired a slight golden glow. This should be enough for him to notice her. Ordinary people will just feel a little happier, but those who have already encountered white magic immediately recognize it. The emperor and crown prince are just such initiates. They will definitely notice her, Your Majesty, the prince began, feeling the magic. The emperor only wearily said that it was a complete headache. He did not expect that the white magician would personally visit them. But, noticing the girl from whom this magic came, the prince assumed that she was just a representative of a white magician. But the emperor asked if he felt something special no one else could emit such energy. This means that this young girl is really the white magician they are looking for. And the way she announced herself. This really makes me anxious. Adelia was embarrassed. She, of course, expected that they might be hostile. But they wouldn't kill her right there. The glances of those red eyes directed at her made the girl doubt her own conclusions. Dance music began to play, signaling the start of the ball. It's not like they could kill her at all, but if they tried, she'd just run away. Looking as carefree as possible, Adelia waved her hand slightly, inviting the prince to join her in the dance. And such frivolous behavior struck the prince with its insolence. But nevertheless, he stood up from his seat. And he went down into the hall, step by step, slowly approaching the isolated girl. "Milady, will you give me your first dance?" The prince gallantly asked the girl, extending his hand. She lowered her eyes, deep down pleased that everything was going as she had planned. And smiling, she extended her hand in response, happily accepting the invitation. The prince and a girl unknown to anyone in the hall were preparing to dance. "Who is she that the crown prince personally invited her to dance?" the ladies whispered. "What family is she from? No one has ever seen her before," the gentleman asked. Ignoring the noise around him, the prince put his hand on the girl's waist, and she, in turn, put her hand on his chest. The couple was ready to start dancing. The conductor waved his baton, signaling the start of the melody. Adelia remarked that this was a great honor for her, and he had no idea how long she had been waiting for this moment. Can he feel how fast her heart is beating? So fast that it feels like it's going to jump out of her chest. "What nonsense," Lucian interrupted her. Patting the man on the shoulder, thereby releasing some energy, the girl noticed that His Highness was upsetting her because she was speaking seriously. Lucian noticed what she did to his shoulder and felt the energy of white magic. "What do you allow yourself?" he began, but stopped short. The next moment, Adelia touched his heart with magic. The prince did not immediately understand what had happened, but his body seemed to become lighter, and he realized that this was the power of white magic. The girl asked if he felt more cheerful. What does all this mean? Lucian could not understand why she did this. Turning on all her feminine charm, Adelia languidly said that she tried very hard on her hair and asked if it turned out beautifully. As if not noticing her coquetry, the man dryly noted that he had seen something similar at an auction a few days ago. Turning around in the dance, the girl confirmed that they were stones of white magic. She had made them herself. Since she made them herself, then she really is a white magician. Lucian was warped by his own conclusions. He finds it hard to believe. She is so small and fragile, it seems that if he grabs her too tightly, she will break. As if reading his thoughts, Adelia lowered her eyes and quietly said that she would not break if he held her tighter. "You're not trying to show off your strength?" the crown prince asked bluntly. The next moment, something happened that really surprised the girl, a very unexpected dance pirouette. The man grabbed her by the waist and forced her to lean back, while he himself hovered over her and asked what she needed. Recovering, Adelia smiled and asked, "Why don't they find a more private place to discuss this?" But the prince didn't like it. He thought that she was out of her mind if she dared to ask for a personal meeting with the crown prince. Ignoring his unfriendly tone, the girl continued to dance and noticed that there were so many people around. It would be stupid of her to show her true strength in front of everyone. The girl's gaze changed, became harder. The crown prince's gaze was not inferior to hers in terms of harshness. It seemed as if two wild animals were locked in mortal combat. "She didn't seem to know the feeling of fear," the man remarked, but Adelia replied that she just wanted to offer him a fair deal, and she had nothing to fear. An elegant red wine in a glass sparkles with ruby hues, like a living work of art. The emperor, with a glass in his hand, carefully watched his own son and an unfamiliar girl. All the feelings and emotions are visible on Lucian's face. He still has to learn and learn. At the same time, despite the fact that she looks younger than Lucian, Milady behaves much more reservedly. She clearly has talent. His Majesty found this very interesting. The same cannot be said about Adelia. She felt with her skin that the rulers had been staring at her for too long, and it wouldn't take long to rub a hole in her. Maybe she shouldn't have provoked him, the girl wondered. What if he really tried to kill her? Breaking the silence, the crown prince said that if she wanted to talk to him alone, she must first say what she wanted. To which the girl repeated that she couldn't do this in front of everyone. Even if she snuggled closer to him, someone would be able to read her words on her lips. She thought intensely that the melody would soon end. and she must convince him before that happens. Adelia assured the prince that he would not lose anything if he accepted her proposal. And she noticed that the dance was coming to an end. Could he really let her go so easily? With one last dance move, Lucian brought the girl back to earth. "Okay," said the prince, "I can also guarantee something." At these words, his expression hardened. If she tried to do something that he didn't like, her head would fly off her shoulders. Trying not to pay attention to the overt threat, Adelia smiled and asked to be invited to the reception when the music ended. "It's a pity that their dance was so short," the girl said, and thanked the prince with a bow. Lucian also regretted it, and took the girl's hand in his. Leaning slightly towards the girl, he raised her palm to his lips and solemnly asked to give him a little more of her precious time. He would like to invite her to the reception room. It would seem that the prince said this to the girl, but everyone around him heard, and immediately surprised exclamations echoed throughout the hall. "It would be an honor for me, Your Highness," Adelia said, blushing and looking down. Like a true gentleman, Lucian offered the girl his hand and volunteered to take her to the reception area. Having let the girl go ahead, the prince subtly shook his head, inviting the emperor to come with him, who in turn also subtly nodded his head. "The hero of the occasion has left, so there is no point in me staying," the ruler announced, rising from the throne. Then he left the hall with measured steps. As soon as the door slammed behind the ruler, there was a noise in the hall. Ladies and gentlemen were indignant. "Who is this girl? Why has no one seen her before? Whose daughter is she? Maybe they know each other." But most of all, one girl in a colorful dress was indignant and even angry. She rushed to her father, demanding to know what it all meant, and why Adelia was dancing with the crown prince, and why she had received an invitation to the drawing room. Countess Vida also rushed to her husband, asking what this girl was up to. But the count thought deeply. He assumed that the best option would be to make Adelia the passion of Count Charles, but did not expect that the crown prince would like her. He thought she was a stupid simpleton, but it turns out she can be useful. If everything goes well with them, then the count himself will have a chance to get closer to the emperor. When this girl gets close to the prince, no matter what happens to her, the money will not stop flowing into his pocket. An incredible benefit, although he doubts that Adelia will be able to rise above the concubine. Lobelia loudly and hysterically demanded an answer from her father, waving her arms. At some point, her hand was grabbed by a strong grip. "Shut your mouth," the count ordered, tightly squeezing his thin wrist. "You have no right to complain, since you yourself could not attract the attention of the crown prince." Lobelia felt a slight tremor the count was frightening her. The man continued to say that if the girl managed to seduce the crown prince, they would become incredibly rich, and as her older sister, she would be able to find a husband for the younger one. However, why not try to take her place? Lobelia is much younger, and she looks healthy, unlike this little thing. What if the prince makes her his wife and not Adelia? He is a man, obviously. He will want to have a young wife. The countess asked with delight whether this meant that Lobelia could become crown princess. To which the count replied that of course, because Lobelia is much better, which made the girl believe in such a possibility. Adelia silently followed the prince to the reception room. Convincing him turned out to be much easier than she thought. And yet, we must not let our guard down in case he changes his mind and decides to kill her. After all, if a member of the imperial family found someone useless, he would not hesitate to get rid of that person. None of the people of this kind knows mercy, except for Princess Ariana, the girl thought. Having reached the large door, the prince announced that they were there and suggested they talk inside. The emperor was already waiting for them in the reception room. Noticing him, Adelia was very surprised. When the emperor managed to come here, this was what was read in her eyes. But having pulled herself together, she bowed elegantly, greeting his majesty, and wanted to say that it was a great honor for her, but the emperor interrupted the girl. "Enough hypocrisy, sit down," the man said emotionlessly. The girl obediently agreed and sat down on the sofa opposite the men. She introduced herself as Adelia Vida, the eldest daughter of Count Vida, and also the head of a small company called Eileen. The emperor thought that their conclusions were true. The head of Eileen is really a white magician, and noticed that if we consider Eileen a small company, then following this logic, the rest of the enterprises are just shops. Smiling, Adelia noted that most would consider her words to be modest. But the emperor said that he considered this duplicity, and the tone of his voice did not bode well. The crown prince asked how she could prove that she was not only a white magician, but also the head of Eileen. The girl believed that she had already proven everything during the dance, but it seems that this is not enough. Prince Lucian tensed. Adelia created a complex magical pattern, thereby proving that she is truly a white magician. As for Eileen, the girl took out a large round seal. "That's enough?" she asked, moving the seal towards the emperor. The prince immediately recognized this object. This is the same seal that he saw in the report on Eileen. Noticing the silence of the rulers, she asked if she needed to provide any more evidence, but the prince was interested in why she decided to show up today, although she had been hiding for 3 years. "Say what you need," the prince said dryly, and Adelia realized that the time had come. Remaining calm, he asked His Highness to take her as his wife. Does she understand who she's talking to, and how dare she aspire to be the crown princess? Of course, Adelia understood, and she asks to become his wife for only 2 years. Lucian asked if she wanted to make a deal with him, and the girl confirmed that she needed the power that only the position of crown princess could provide, the power of support from the emperor's family. After 2 years of marriage, they will divorce, and the prince will grant her a title and some lands. Then the emperor intervened and asked if she understood that the title would mean that she would have to remain faithful until the end of her days. Adelia understood this very well. Her business is in the empire and she has no reason to leave it. Lucian was interested in what she was offering in return, and Adelia was proposing the monopolization of white magic stones by the imperial family. And as her dowry, she can offer a sacred sword. The sacred sword is a completely different question, let alone monopolization, the emperor noted. You speak as if you have it. To be honest, Adelia only knew where he was, and unfortunately, the art of wielding a sword was unknown to her. In addition, she cannot sell it either, so it is useless to her, so she believes that the sword should belong to someone who will benefit from it. The prince did not believe that the girl was offering the sacred sword as her dowry. After all, this is a legendary weapon. There are many other ways to obtain a title other than marriage to a prince. Why would she be offered white magic stones and a sacred sword just for the position of crown princess? Adelia wants independence from her family, and this is the best way to achieve her goal without negative consequences. Lucian still had doubts. If all she wants is independence, then the deal will bring her less benefit. Overall, it's hard to call it a deal. Is she telling the truth what she really needs? The girl does not care whether he has mistresses. The main thing is that they do not affect her position as a princess. She wants his power, not his heart. And yet, Adelia would like them to look like a loving couple in public, because the crown princess is worth nothing if she is out of favor with the prince. The emperor added that she must understand that by seeking independence, she would only make the deal more profitable for them. Why go that far just for the sake of power? "I want to destroy Vita's family." The girl's voice sounded muffled. The rulers were shocked by the girl's frankness. She wants to drag Vita's name through the mud. That's her whole motive? Lucian couldn't understand it in any way, because this was her family. But the wise emperor wanted to listen to the girl. Adelia said that her family brought her a lot of suffering. Therefore, she would like to take revenge on them personally, because the only person who can protect her is herself. Lucian had no plans to get married, so he doesn't lose anything, but still. Adelia nervously fiddled with her hands folded on her knees. The prince waited too long to answer. Had she really mentioned the white magic stones and the sacred sword too early? She doubted that the crown prince understood her situation. If he turns her down now, then her whole plan will go down the drain. She has no choice. She will have to show the prince her ace up her sleeve. The girl rose from her seat and unbuttoned her cape. "I think you will understand if you see it for yourself," she said. The men, involuntarily watching the girl begin to undress, were outraged by what she was doing, because she was a noblewoman. But Adelia did not listen to them, but threw her long hair to the side, revealing her back. And what they saw horrified them. Large, ugly scars were visible on the fragile girl's back. "These scars were left by the people who call themselves my family," Adelia said quietly. The emperor and prince stared in shock at what the girl revealed to them. The longest scar was left by her stepmother when she was 7 years old at the age of 11. Her younger sister left a burn under the scar, out of pure interest. Lucian couldn't take his eyes off her back. Adelia talked a lot more about the atrocities of her family, but the men did not utter a word. "What are you trying to achieve with this? Do you want to arouse pity?" the emperor finally asked wearily. But that's not what the girl was trying to achieve. It seemed to her that they doubted her intentions because of what she offered in return. Lucian's marriage will not put him in a difficult position, but the girl's whim is very unexpected and not so easy to fulfill. Adelia only shows them how much she wants to achieve her goal. She wants to make the lives of these people hell on earth. The girl's voice gained strength in anticipation of revenge. They will suffer 2-3 times more than she did when they mocked her. But then the prince interrupted her passionate speech. The crown prince rose sharply from his seat, which greatly surprised the girl. Then the man's hand reached out to the girl. Putting a cape on her shoulders, Lucian replied that she had proven her words and could stop. Adelia looked up at the man in surprise. Did he really feel sorry for her? Or she reminded him of Princess Ariana because he is very kind to her. Then, turning to the emperor, he said that if she signs the contract, then he himself sees no reason for refusal. "Do as you please," replied the emperor, raising his glass. Several hours passed, during which they discussed all the points of the contract, and Adelia asked permission to settle in the palace as soon as possible. Lucian promised to send the carriage with the knight to Vita's estate tomorrow, and for now she will live in the guest quarters. The girl was surprised that everything would happen so soon, but she was also happy. The prince concluded that they would certify the contract legally and magically. It would be best to legalize the transaction to avoid problems in the future. Adelia bowed respectfully, realizing that the prince still did not trust her. One careless step and her plan would fail. "I will look forward to our wedding," the girl said coldly. She should not let her guard down. The next morning at Vita's estate, Lobelia burst into the room without knocking, raising her voice from the threshold. "What kind of trick did you pull yesterday?" the girl asked her sister hysterically. Adelia, who woke up from these screams, calmly noticed that she had no instructions, who taught her to break into other people's chambers in the morning and without knocking. But Lobelia roughly pushed the girl and continued to scream, demanding to immediately tell her what she had done. Such rubbish. Why the crown prince invited her to a personal meeting. Adelia was beginning to be annoyed by her sister's annoyingness. That is why she wants to get out of here as soon as possible. Can't Lobelia be silent for at least a day? "You're ignoring me. Answer immediately," Lobelia said hysterically, dissatisfied with the girl's silence. But Adelia was not going to answer her. Why would she? She demanded to stop screaming and get out of her room. Lobelia screamed as if she were crazy. How dare she talk to her like that? She is unhappy when Adelia is silent when she speaks. She also doesn't like what she wants from her. "Are you jealous of me?" she suddenly asked her sister, which put her into a stupor, and she stammered and asked what she had just said. The crown prince didn't even look at her, and Adelia danced with him and even talked in private. She was going crazy about this. After this, Lobelia literally shook with anger. Of course, she absolutely understands. Adelia smiled. Lobelia's health is better. Yes, and she is more beautiful and younger than Adelia, but the prince still chose her. "Cheap!" Lobelia shouted in rage and raised her hand, intending to hit her sister. But there was no blow. "What's going on here?" a stern male voice was heard. Dissatisfied with being interrupted, Lobelia Vita, her face twisted with anger, turned to the door. Right next to the door stood 5 imperial knights in white uniforms. Retracting her already raised hand, she nervously asked who the hell they were. And how dare they break into the estate? "My name is Don. I am the head of the Imperial Guard," said the chief, arrogantly looking down at the girl. "We arrived here on the orders of the Crown Prince. But what is more important now is that he asked her a question about what she had just done, and Lobelia was seriously scared. But Adelia answered his question and asked him not to worry. It was just a small quarrel between the sisters. She was glad that His Highness had sent her this night and asked him to turn away for a moment. After all, she was still in her night clothes. Don, as well as the guard standing behind him, instantly lowered his eyes and turned red, at the same time apologizing. In fact, Adelia noticed the distinctive mark on the head knight's chest. She didn't expect the prince to send the head of the Imperial Guard, even though he promised to send the carriage with the knight to the Vita estate the very next day. It's nice that the Crown Prince fulfills his promises so clearly. Don Creeder is the youngest head of the Imperial Guard in history, as well as the right hand of the Crown Prince, which makes him close to the Imperial family. And the fact that it was Don who was sent means that the prince is more favorable to her than Adelia expected. Throwing a robe over her nightgown, the girl turned and allowed the men to raise their heads. At the noise in her room, the entire Vita family appeared, interested in what was happening here. At this moment, the knights decided to pay their respects to Adelia, for which they all knelt before the girl at once. "I, Don Creeder, head of the Imperial Guard, have come to escort Miss Adelia Vita by order of the Crown Prince," the man said formally. "From now on, Lady Adelia is to be treated as the Crown Princess." These words impressed all members of the Vita family. Without exception, Lobelia almost burst with anger. The Count and Countess were shocked, and David was even interested. Looking at their reaction, the girl thought about her own thoughts. They have always considered her a non-entity, and now it is even difficult for them to admit that her position has become higher than theirs. How long, in their opinion, she should have remained a simple daughter of a count? But the girl answered out loud that she would immediately begin preparations for moving to the palace, and asked the guards to wait for her a little. Having bowed politely, Don asked the lady not to rush. Lobelia, frozen, thought that this could not happen, that this girl would become the crown princess. This was some kind of nightmare. She grabbed her sister sharply by the elbow. "Liar, these are all your inventions, right?" she screamed hysterically. "What does it all mean?" Adelia's gaze sharpened, and she pulled her hand out of her tenacious grip, telling her sister to be careful with her words. She is, after all, the daughter of a count, so let her behave accordingly. In addition, Lobelia should not forget that her words could affect the reputation of the entire family. They're sisters, of course, but doesn't she think she deserves a little respect as a princess? Adelia especially emphasized that last word. She stroked her sister, who was shaking with anger, on the cheek. "You wanted to know if I was lying?" the girl asked insinuatingly. Adelia leaned close to Lobelia's ear and whispered that, in fact, the crown prince did not choose her. "I chose him." From these words, Lobelia's eyes became the size of gold coins and her eyebrows flew up. "He will never even lay an eye on you, don't even hope." His sister's tone greatly frightened Lobelia. After all, he was so similar to their father's tone, which made her truly scared. "Nonsense!" she shouted, pushing Adelia away. "You think I'll believe this nonsense? What right do you have to choose?" "Lobelia," the girl answered wearily, "didn't I just tell you to watch your words? Beautiful lips like yours should utter only pleasant words." Adelia's gaze sharpened. The guards also looked at the crown princess's sister with disdain, and Lobelia stopped short, realizing that she could be punished for this. She was forced to bow politely, and Adelia, pleased with the effect produced, asked the guards to wait a little outside. Soon, Adelia Vita moved to the imperial palace. The contract between the girl and the crown prince was certified by law and magic. It included all the conditions that they had discussed the previous evening, and the prince invited the girl to take a look for herself, which she did. "Everything is in place," the girl said, having carefully examined everything. And she put her signature, thereby confirming the validity of the contract on her part. It turns out that she is now officially His Highness's fiancée. Lucian noticed that the girl was actually beaming with happiness, but he did not share her feelings, so he got up from his seat, and holding out his hand to the girl for a handshake, he said that he was looking forward to his cooperation with Miss Adelia Vita. Adelia froze in place. So the prince stood with his hand outstretched in front of the girl, frozen in surprise. Having come to her senses, Adelia asked if maybe he had a poisoned needle hidden in his sleeve, and he wanted to get rid of it secretly, but she warned that poisons had no effect on her. The prince knew this, as well as the fact that in order to kill a magician, you need a sacred sword, and not some kind of poisoned needle. "Then why did he suddenly decide to show her respect?" the girl asked. His attitude towards her changed a little. "Yesterday the prince was not so kind." To which Lucian replied that yesterday she was just another noblewoman who loomed before his eyes, and today she is already his bride, and he must respect the future member of the imperial family, even if it is just a deal. These words impressed the girl very much. The prince values his family very much, so everything is logical. It turns out that now the crown prince considers her part of his family. Adelia held out her hand for the offered handshake. And she said that she was also looking forward to their cooperation. And she asked to omit the formalities, it would be enough to just call her by name. The girl would prefer to get rid of this surname as soon as possible. "As you wish," Prince Lucian replied. Having sealed their agreement with a handshake, the young people looked into each other's eyes until the man offered to escort the girl to her chambers. But then there was the sound of hasty small steps. "Lucian." The door opened without warning, and a pink, shining sun appeared in the room. The man immediately withdrew his hand, as did the girl, blushing slightly, as if they had been caught doing something indecent. And then he headed towards the little girl, leaving Adelia to wonder what it was. The girl looked at the little princess with bated breath. Only a second later did she pay attention to the unexpected guest, just as she did to her. Ariana seemed to have even forgotten about the existence of her beloved brother, and looked at the girl, spellbound. "Are you a fairy?" the little girl asked naively. "Is this really Princess Ariana?" Adelia was also fascinated by the baby. Small red eyes looked at the girl with fascination. Lucian wanted to greet his sister, but she stepped past him. "Who are you, Miss Fairy?" The little girl repeated her question, and the girl was touched by her and the fact that she had just been called a fairy. Adelia knew that Ariana was the main character and all, but how could she be so adorable? Is she really a girl, or really a piece of candy? "Hello, Your Highness." The girl smiled warmly, greeting the princess. "My name is Adelia Vita," she introduced herself, crouching down to be on the same level with the girl and taking her hand. She also said that the princess could just call her Adelia. The little girl was very happy about this, and she introduced herself as Ariana Floss Dekrock, adding that she was glad to meet Adelia. The girl was grateful to the little girl for her friendliness and expressed hope that they would become friends. But then a man's legs came between them. It was Lucian who was dissatisfied with their communication and noticed that his sister could not address his wife by just her first name. And although Adelia did not object to this, the prince insisted that it was against the rules of good etiquette. The girl slowly stood up. Really, it seemed as if electric discharges were rushing between the young people. But it seems that Her Highness was happy to call her simply Adelia. While the girl explained her arguments, the smile did not leave her lips. Still against the rules of etiquette, the prince was adamant. The little girl carefully pulled her brother's clothes. Was she really not allowed to call her by her name? The baby's eyes were wide open, and it seemed like she was about to cry. Lucian understood that he could not resist, but he tried to prove that Adelia would soon become the crown princess, and she, as a princess by right, must observe etiquette. But I just want to make friends with Adelia. The little girl folded her arms in a pleading gesture and turned on all her charm. Okay, whatever you say, the older brother gave in, which made the little girl very happy, and happily said that she had the best older brother in the world. Adelia quietly called the princess and said that on the way she stopped at Eileen's bakery and grabbed a dessert. Would she like to try it? Ariana immediately perked up. She heard that this is now the most popular place in the capital, and she happily agreed. The desserts from there were her favorite. The prince at that time was dissatisfied with their communication. The girl was just about to go to her chambers and invited the princess to accompany her. Then they could try them together. The little girl agreed with pleasure. And only one person in this room was darker than a cloud and did not share the general joy. Turning to him, Adelia asked why His Highness froze. Wasn't he going to show her her bedroom? Then she turned to the princess again, asking what dessert was her favorite, while the girl's voice became incomparably softer. Adelia herself loves strawberry croissants most of all. And Princess Ariana likes chocolate muffins, the ones with whipped cream on top. Lucian sighed heavily. He told his little sister to be careful around men, but apparently he should have warned him about women too. On the table was a 3-tiered platter with many different desserts. The crown prince sat in a chair, and Adelia was on the sofa with Ariana in her arms. "It's delicious," the girl asked the little girl, who was devouring her favorite dessert. Lucian silently watched their super cute communication and how the girl lured Ariana to her side with desserts. Adelia noticed the prince's cold gaze and the fact that he never tried the desserts. Then the girl pushed one of the pieces of cake towards him and offered to try it. The man immediately refused, citing the fact that he does not like sweets. "But these cakes are not too sweet and he should like it," the girl insisted. The princess also asked her brother to try it. "Everything is so delicious." "I'm not in the mood for dessert," the prince answered, and the girl was upset because they are really delicious. "It would be great if you tried with us, Lucian," the little girl remarked sadly. And the girl continued to smile, thereby also persuading His Highness to try. But the look was hard and literally ordered eat, and Lucian gave in again, deciding to try a piece. Having pricked it on a fork, he immediately sent a piece of cake into his mouth. As soon as the man put the first piece into his mouth, his eyes opened in surprise. Ariana immediately asked how it was. It was delicious, but the fact that the prince put piece after piece into his mouth spoke for itself. He finished the dessert quite quickly and, slightly blushing with pleasure, said restrainedly that it was not bad. Adelia and the baby cutely discussed that the prince was very modest, and they had never seen such an expression on his face, from which the man returned to his previous mood. He didn't expect them to get along so well. When they talked in the living room yesterday, Adelia was very cruel in her remarks about her own family, and it seemed to him that her family had caused her a lot of trauma, especially those terrible scars. Lucian was worried that she might become jealous of Ariana, who had known nothing but love in life. Fortunately, his fears were not justified, but could it be that she was just pretending? Soon all the desserts were eaten and the plates were empty. Ariana thought she had already eaten all the desserts from Eileen's bakery, but today she tried many that she had never even heard of before. To which Adelia noticed that she only brought new desserts, and whispered that Eileen was under her leadership so she could try all the new products from the bakery first. The fork fell out of the girl's hands. "What? Oh, you are the head of Eileen!" the little girl asked loudly and in surprise. "But this is a secret," the girl added, "and she hopes that the princess will not tell anyone," Ariana immediately confirmed, adding that she can trust her. "You will no longer hide the fact that you are a white magician?" the prince asked. Despite all the threats that rained down on her for 3 years, she never appeared in public. Patting the girl on the head, Adelia said that it was fashionable to trust Her Highness, In addition, the entire continent already knows about the rumors that Chief Eileen is a white magician, and this rumor is true. Lucian was interested in why she did not deny this. He suggested that in order to increase the value of the company, but the girl replied that she was already worth enough. She wants to achieve the commercialization of white magic stones in the empire. And what she said next surprised the crown prince very much. Adelia Vita dreams that everyone, whether noble or commoner, can use them. The power contained in a white magic stone depends on its size, but even a small fragment retains its cleansing properties. If they start selling stones that are too small to have any commercial value at a bargain price, then the commoners will be much better off. Since her goal is to improve the lives of their people, then the crown prince has no reason to refuse her. However, commercialization of stones is only possible within the empire. Of course, Adelia understood this. For the plan to work, no one should know that the white magician is the crown princess. Lucian assumed it was because of the nobles. Ariana was very surprised by this and generally understood little, but continued to listen carefully. The girl confirmed the prince's assumption. If the nobles admit that the crown princess creates white magic stones and sells them in the market, they will interfere and definitely ruin everything. At first, since this is the crown princess's business, they will conclude that this is also the business of the imperial family. And then, all the nobles who are allowed to invest will pounce on this opportunity. Lucian confirmed that nobles with the right to invest in imperial business would definitely not miss such an opportunity. And when sales of white magic stones grow enough, these same nobles will lay claim to them. They will say as investors, we have the right to monopolize this business. The widespread use of white magic stones will keep the nobles in line. It will also improve the lives of all the inhabitants of the empire, and Adelia will be grateful if the prince helps her. What if the sale of stones goes beyond the empire? The man asked a logical question. The girl smiled mysteriously. That is why she transfers all trade rights to the imperial family. Lucian understood what she was hinting at. The issue of eliminating possible smuggling of stones now rests on the shoulders of the imperial family. And if the goods do leak across the border, then it is only their problem. So that's why Adelia so easily transferred the rights to trade. It finally dawned on the prince. She is smarter than he thought. As long as the imperial family controls sales within their own empire, they will be able to sell the stones to neighboring countries at a high price. Rising from his seat, Lucian suggested drawing up a contract as soon as possible. Then he went up to Adelia and took his sister, who had been next to the girl all this time, thereby surprising both. The prince wanted to take his sister to her room, but the baby really wanted to stay with Adelia, and therefore she vigorously escaped from her brother's embrace. To calm the girl down, Lucian sat down with her in his arms, but the baby continued to sulk. Then, remembering something, she turned to Adelia and asked if she was a magician. Yes, I'm a special magician, not quite like the others, the girl answered, simultaneously doing magic. In the room, bright solar butterflies created from magic flapped their wings. One of them sat on Ariana's nose, and the girl noticed that she was warm and so beautiful. The girl even felt lighter in her heart and felt more cheerful, to which the girl noticed that this butterfly contained her magic, and she herself was a white magician who specialized in healing and protection. Ariana rushed again to Adelia, and Lucian did not have time to stop her, although he tried. While the girl admired how incredible she was, Adelia promised to create a magical artifact and give it to the princess. Then he will always bring her joy and protect her if something happens. Maybe make a ring, the girl thought, but rejected this option, since for a child her age, the ring would be inconvenient. Then maybe a necklace with red stones, just like the princess's eyes, and even Tolya's hair decoration will be perfect. The prince watched with surprise the interaction between Adelia and the princess, as if they existed in their own separate world. A lot of time had passed, and it was time for the little princess to rest. The baby wearily said goodbye to Adelia, and the maid took the princess to her room. The girl also said a sweet goodbye and wished her a good rest. When the door closed behind the princess, Adelia felt uncomfortable. The prince looked at her intently and was interested in why she liked Ariana so much, even though she is a cutie. But where does so much unconditional love come from for a child whom you see for the first time? The girl wondered what she could say. Princess Ariana has always been her only hope. They finally met. How could she not love her? Seeing her in person, Adelia was only more convinced of this, as well as the fact that she would always be on her side, no matter what the princess did. But she couldn't tell the truth, so she replied that she couldn't help but like such a charming child. Lucian still found it suspicious, and warned that if she had any ulterior motives or hurt Ariana, she would be in trouble. She asked him not to worry about this. He would still be jealous of how well they got along. so the prince can stop his baseless worries about her relationship with the princess and finally tell her what she should beware of regarding the imperial family. Adelia asked if there were rooms in the palace where she should not go, but was told that she was allowed to go where the crown princess was allowed to be. She would always be followed by one of the guards, so she shouldn't do anything stupid. And the girl was surprised that it turns out that she would be watched and not protected. However, white magic sparkled in the girl's hands. Why does a white magician need protection at all? The crown prince's fiancé can't walk around with just her maid, Lucian said. The girl was outraged that he did not even try to deny that he would watch her, to which the prince noted that the presence of a guard was required by etiquette. Besides, in the palace, he could not finish, because a strange sound was heard outside the door, as if a small elephant was running. Adelia also heard strange sounds and was very surprised. It seemed as if someone was running along the corridor of the palace. The sounds became louder, and Lucian was already beginning to guess who was making them. Lucian, the boy, loudly and unceremoniously burst into the room. "You're really getting married." He experienced very extensive emotions, and besides, he was out of breath from running. Not only did Lawrence, who was the emperor's youngest son, run through the corridors and make noise, but he also burst in without knocking while Lucian was receiving guests. The older brother's tone scared the younger brother, and the man continued to reprimand the boy, noting that he needed more etiquette lessons because he was acting like a child, even worse than Ariana. Stuttering, the boy tried to explain that he was just in such shock. Adelia at that moment decided to make her presence known and greeted His Highness, causing Lawrence to look at her contemptuously. The girl said that she was honored to meet him and introduced herself. Lawrence finally noticed that they were not alone. The child, who had been almost crying before, suddenly asked what this bag of bones was. "She's not even that beautiful. There's nothing special about her," he snorted. His brother wasn't going to marry her. What did this little thing just say? Adelia mentally indignant. "I don't like her," Lawrence said categorically, crossing his arms over his chest. Lucian sternly asked where his manners had gone and demanded that he show respect to the girl and say hello as expected, which made him scared again. The boy blushed slightly, realizing that he had acted ugly. "Hello?" he said, without looking at the girl and bowing slightly. "Hello, Your Highness," Adelia answered with all possible delicacy, while straightening her hair. Lawrence seemed to have an epiphany, because if you look closely, she is a little beautiful. But he immediately tried to get rid of the unexpected thought, for which he vigorously shook his head. Remembering why he was here, the little prince turned to his brother again, indignant that he had experienced an incredible shock when, upon returning from the hunt, he was immediately informed that he was getting married. Also on her, he unceremoniously pointed his finger at the girl standing next to her, who was trying with all her might to maintain outward friendliness. But the next second, he realized that he was again acting inappropriately for his status. He asked more calmly how his brother could make such a decision without him, to which Lucian replied that he did not need his younger brother's opinion about his own marriage. "Didn't you listen to what your father was saying?" asked the crown prince, which made the boy surprised. Lucian indignantly suggested that Lawrence had come here immediately after the hunt, without even greeting his father, and the boy confirmed this. Watching how the younger brother asked the older brother what his father should have told him, Adelia remembered that his nickname was Imperial Slow-Witted. It is not known who came up with it, but it suits him. "This woman is a white magician," Lucian finally said, and the boy turned his head towards the guest in bewilderment. And only after a couple of moments did the meaning of what his brother said reach him. "This ugly thing is a white magician!" he shouted, again forgetting about decency, pointing his finger at the girl while she tried to remain calm and not pay attention to this rude little thing. It was indeed very slow to reach Prince Lawrence, but when he finally realized this, admiration appeared in his gaze. Adelia confirmed this, while noting that Ariana had the same reaction and they are indeed close relatives. "You probably want some proof," the girl asked, working magic. Lawrence was engulfed in a warm golden glow, from which he was literally mesmerized. The small scratch on the boy's cheek healed immediately, as did the wound on the back of his hand. He no longer felt tired and all his wounds had healed, which means that this is white magic. It is different from holy powers and ordinary magic. But he still had scars. Lawrence pulled up the sleeve of his shirt, exposing his arm to the elbow. Could white magic really only heal small wounds, he asked? Adelia explained that this is not the case. White magic sometimes leaves scars because it does not work like healing. She thought that it would be better for the priest to look at the large wounds, so she left the scars, but she would not leave scars on him for life, because His Highness is a very important person. "An important man," the boy repeated with surprise. Okay, Lawrence agreed. She is suitable and his brother deserves such a skilled wife. The little prince agreed. And he asked what her name was, to which the girl introduced herself and asked to call her simply by her name. You don't mind, your highness. She turned to the crown prince, and he realized that it was useless to argue, and why ask him at all if she didn't care? In this case, Lawrence wanted to say hello again, but this time in a proper way, bowing slightly, he introduced himself as Lawrence Rivera Decrac. The girl also formally introduced herself and extended her hand to him for a handshake, still smiling and expressing the hope that they would get along. Finally, evening came, and Adelia tiredly lounged on her bed, thinking that everything was really different in the palace. But she is glad that she got here so quickly, because this way she will get along with the residents of the palace faster. Especially with these cuties Lawrence and Ariana. How charming they can be. The girl was touched, remembering recent events. But it's hard to believe that all of them, including the emperor and the crown prince, are from the same family. Still, Prince Lucian showed her some semblance of respect. And this awkward scene, when they looked into each other's eyes for a long time, something stirred in the girl's soul. She doesn't think they are bad people. There was a knock on the door and Adelia asked who was there. "Chief Maid of Honor, can I come in for a minute?" came a voice from behind the door. And after permission, a modest woman entered the room. After greeting the mistress, she introduced herself as Joanna. She was appointed as my lady's confidant, so she was ordered to make sure that the mistress was comfortable, and also asked to let her know if anything was needed. Adelia noticed that she didn't need anything. It was already very cozy here. And she will leave the rest in the capable hands of Lady Joanna. The girl finished smiling. Bowing, the maid said that there was no need for formalities because she was the future crown princess. But Adelia knew that Lady Joanna was the crown prince's nanny, and everyone who was important to his highness was also important to her. The face of the main maid of honor softened slightly when the girl asked to be allowed to show her respect in this way. Adelia knew Lady Joanna's fate from the book. She was brought to the palace by the empress, and it would be beneficial to maintain a good relationship with her. In addition, in the book, Joanna lost her son due to illness, and immediately after that she died under the wheels of a carriage. She is a minor character with a tragic fate. After her death, the crown prince lost his dear friend, and Nanny rolled into one, and I never recovered from it. The culprits behind her death were nobles who opposed the crown prince, but he never found out about it. If you think about it, this story is not touching at all. It is tragic. "Milady, are you okay?" Joanna asked, puzzled by the girl's long silence, and Adelia emerged from her thoughts, making excuses that she was simply tired. His Highness mentioned that he would send her a maid, but she never saw her. Joanna explained that the maids had come with her and suggested that they look at their profiles first. Adelia took into hand the personal affairs of the 3 maids assigned to her by His Highness. The maid of honor smiled and noticed that my lady was very important to His Majesty. He was careful in choosing his maids, but the girl herself strongly doubted it. Barry is the knight's eldest daughter. Anna is the second daughter of the Viscount. Adelia was delayed on the 3rd case. Lily Volt is the daughter of Count Volt. Why would the daughter of a nobleman, a count, become a maid of the crown princess? Oh, this is so obvious, the girl thought in anticipation. Most ladies-in-waiting are daughters of viscounts or other nobles of lower rank. There are no adult women in the imperial family now, so there is no one to attend high society meetings, which means that the daughter of a nobleman with a title higher than viscount does not make sense to become a maid of honor. The only reason why such a girl would want to serve someone from the imperial family was because of some kind of political plan. Most likely, she aims to become a crown princess or wants to become the wife of another prince. If the former is true, then obviously Lily is trying to hurt her. They are both daughters of earls, so she probably thinks she has a chance. Miss Lily volunteered to be a maid of honor herself, the girl asked Joanna, and she replied that it was so, and she should not worry about it. She will soon become crown princess. Ladies of her status often have noble ladies-in-waiting. Joanna asked if she should now invite the ladies-in-waiting to my lady's chambers, to which she received an affirmative answer. One by one, the 3 girls entered Adelia's chambers. Joanna introduced the girls by name. Anna and Barry politely greeted and introduced themselves, adding that from now on they would serve Lady Adelia. The girl also greeted them warmly, and she fell silent, turning her attention to the 3rd girl. "Hello?" Lily said without any politeness, and her glance from under her brows did not bode well. Noticing this look, Adelia wondered how long she would look at her so fiercely. It was literally written on her face. "I hate you." Adelia was glad to meet all the ladies-in-waiting and asked them to take good care of her. "Thank you for the invitation to dinner, Your Majesty." The future crown princess bowed elegantly. The entire imperial family sat in front of her at a huge table. The emperor himself allowed the girl to sit down. The younger prince and princess were very happy to see the girl and very vigorously expressed their joy. And Lucian pushed back his chair and, like a true gentleman, invited the girl to sit down. Taking her seat, Adelia thanked His Highness. For some time in the silence, only the sound of cutlery being used with which food was taken could be heard. Having tasted the first bite, the girl could not help but notice that the food was divinely delicious. Does the imperial family really eat such dishes every day? The emperor, like a loving father, offered a piece of meat to Ariana, and the girl wanted her guest to try it too. Adelia was touched by how much the princess's family doted on that soul. Her cheeks were about to burst. Although these were happy moments, the girl suddenly became sad. This is what a real family looks like, she thought. It's about eating delicious food with everyone else, laughing and chatting rather than eating empty rice alone. All her life she dreamed of such a family. But now there's no point in measuring family happiness, and she persuaded herself to give up this idea. Suddenly someone moved a plate with a dish closer to her. It was Prince Lucian, who greatly surprised the girl with his action. Why did he do this, the girl wondered. Following him, Ariana pushed several dishes towards Adelia, saying that they were very tasty, and the girl should definitely try them. Another person carefully pushed a plate towards her. Embarrassed and blushing, Lawrence invited her to try this dish. Adelia looked in shock at the table laden with plates. She was touched to the depths of her soul. "Thank you all," the girl smiled, trying to hide her emotions and embarrassment. Dinner continued in a pleasant family atmosphere. Everyone was eating, laughing, and chatting. At the end of the dinner, there were various desserts. It was late, and the maid wanted to take Ariana into the room, but the girl became capricious that she wanted to play some more. The emperor noticed that it was time for the little princesses to go to bed, and tomorrow there would be time to play, and wished his daughter good night. The baby agreed with her father and said goodbye to everyone, finally asking Adelia to play with her again tomorrow. The girl happily agreed, saying that they would definitely see each other tomorrow. When the door closed behind the baby, the emperor began a serious conversation. He asked if the girl planned to hide the fact that she was a white magician, and the girl agreed, at least for a while, because everyone already knows that Boss Eileen is a white magician, so she cannot allow so that it becomes known that she is the leader. "You are the head of Eileen." Lururans experienced indescribable surprise from such news. The emperor and crown prince looked at him silently as if he were slow-witted. The boy loudly asked whether it was true that Adelia was the head of Eileen, and whether his father and brother knew about it, and it turns out that he was the only one who didn't know. Trying to cool his brother's ardor, Lucian asked if he had forgotten how to behave at table, or maybe he wanted to take etiquette lessons again. The emperor, in turn, told his son that he had not heard anything about him since his return, and now he was also making a scene. And the girl, smiling, confirmed that she was the head of Eileen. But she didn't tell him anything because she created the company secretly, hiding her identity. Lawrence could not understand that Adelia, his brother's future wife, was the head of Eileen and a white magician. Earlier that day, after returning from a hunt, he had heard talk that the girl who had managed to meet the crown prince alone, the daughter of Count Vitus, had arrived at the palace. Everyone around was talking about how she was already the crown princess. Lawrence was unhappy that his brother was getting married. He was sure that she was unworthy of him. He thought that this girl simply wanted to gain the influence and wealth of his brother. But the girl who is now sitting in front of him is not what he imagined her to be. Adelia is simply incredible. Prince Lawrence could not hide his admiration. The boy's eyes became incredibly large and shiny. A blush of embarrassment and admiration covered his cheeks, and Adelia couldn't help but notice how cute he was at that moment. The emperor asked his son not to shout, and he reluctantly agreed, and Lucian coughed delicately, returning to the interrupted conversation. He was interested in how many other people knew that she was a white magician. And when Adelia replied that she was only her deputy, the emperor sternly asked whether he could be trusted. The girl immediately replied that, of course he could be trusted, because he was her slave, that is, a faithful partner. In turn, she asked who was aware of their agreement. She was told that for now, only those present at the table. But they planned to soon inform the head of the Imperial Guard and the leader of the secret detachment, since they are responsible for security in the palace. If it's only 2 people, then it's okay, the girl agreed. The emperor had heard that she was planning to start selling artifacts, and he wanted to know when she would start. Once again, Lawrence could not help himself, and asked loudly and in surprise if they meant different objects that contained magic. For which he again received a remark and a disapproving glance from his father, instantly becoming silent. Adelia will begin selling artifacts only after the sales of magic stones have been established. Orders will be accepted in advance, and only from those who meet her requirements. The artifacts will also be magically tied to the buyer. This way, no one can abuse them. What are the requirements? The ruler asked. For example, the girl said, she will not sell the artifact to those who have ties to crime, or those who are members of the Assassin's Guild, or he works for the nobles as a mercenary or soldier, she added. In this case, the imperial family will become her first client. His Majesty wants her to create the best quality artifact for them and is willing to pay any price. The girl replied that she had already prepared everything necessary, since she was going to give it to the princess. And they don't have to pay, it can be considered part of her dowry, but the emperor firmly said to just send him a check. Adelia insisted that she creates artifacts herself, and it costs her nothing, but the emperor was adamant check. The man thought that Ariana already adores her. If she also receives a gift, they will become inseparable, but he cannot allow this to happen. Okay, Your Majesty. The girl nevertheless agreed. She understood that the emperor was jealous, because he believed that this would make him and the princess even closer. Yes, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's immediately clear where the prince got such character traits from, but she still won't object to the money. Besides, this will not be the only gift from her to the princess, the girl thought slyly. Dinner continued with tea drinking and conversation. The ruler said that the kingdom of Tassel is now in a state of war and asks for their help. In exchange, they offered to give them a mine that extracts magic stones. Adelia was surprised. This is a kingdom that does not like strangers. She heard that they refused the help of the allied kingdoms, even when they began to lose the war, to which the ruler noticed that the girl was well informed. And indeed, their arrogance led to the fact that the state almost completely destroyed. I don't recommend helping them, Adelia said calmly, taking a sip of tea. The chance of victory is slim, especially considering how much money Tassel can invest in the war compared to their opponents. How do you know about this? Asked the emperor. Tassel are one of the clients of the Eileen Company lately. Their organizations have been purchasing less and less magical supplies, although they are necessary for their main weapons. What kind of victory can we talk about if they don't have enough funds to produce weapons? Adelia's company will terminate the contract with Tassel after another order. Eileen does not do business with those who are doomed to failure, the girl added, and the emperor understood why she was at the head of the company, even if she was younger than Lucian. The fate of Eileen is entirely in Adelia's hands, and judging by the summary profitability analysis, the turnover of funds in Eileen functions in the same way as in any kingdom, but on a smaller scale. At the moment, Eileen is certainly capable of shaking the power in the small kingdom. The ruler is even glad that Adelia is on their side, and he is almost sorry that she is connected with them only by a fictitious marriage. It's not surprising that you're the boss of Eileen, the man praised. You probably know a lot about the organization's clients. The girl confirmed that she personally studies each contract, and remembering, happily said that they were planning to start producing new jewelry. These will be women's jewelry with pink diamonds. After these words, each of those present became wary. Do you think such jewelry will suit Ariana? Asked the emperor. Of course, the girl grinned, understanding what feelings they might be experiencing right now. The princess will look so good in them, as if they were created especially for her. Before she had time to finish speaking, each of the men wanted to immediately buy back all the jewelry that had not yet been made. That's what we'll do, the girl laughed. The ruler noted that if Adelia had no other plans, he would like her to attend every dinner they had. The satisfied girl smiled happily. It would be an honor for her. By the way, there will be a banquet soon. Lucian, sitting next to him, turned to Adelia. You will need to attend it with me. The girl was very surprised by this turn of events. Of course, she was Lucian's fiancée, Lawrence added, and their engagement party had not yet taken place, so she must appear somewhere before the wedding took place. Adelia noticed that it would be full of people who hated her. This was already giving her a headache, but she thought that she was the bride of the crown prince, about whom nothing was known, and who appeared suddenly. Of course, everyone would be interested in looking at her. They will all be divided into two groups, those who want to harm her and those who want to get close to use her. He noticed that she had nothing to worry about. He would be by her side, and besides, he was sure that she could stand up for herself. The girl was very surprised by the sudden words of support. Apparently, nothing can be done. Although she wanted to appear less often in high society, this is not at all for her. But she will have to attend the event as the prince's bride, the girl said coquettishly. Still, she is looking forward to something, her hand clenched into a fist. How they will look at the new crown princess. After a long dinner, Adelia returned to her room and immediately threw herself on the bed. The girl was very tired and felt that she wanted to sleep, but did not want to work at all. If it weren't for the company's business, she might have already gone to bed. The girl got out of bed and went to the chest of drawers, thinking that she needed to quickly finish everything and go to bed. But what she saw, or rather didn't see, made her surprised. The box, stored in the top drawer of the chest of drawers, gaped empty. The lack of an item she needed so much for her work was very discouraging. At first, Adelia thought that he was lying together, and therefore she looked through all the suitcases, all the documents, all the secluded places in the room. "I was robbed," the girl either asked or stated the fact. If she had known this would happen, she would have cast a locking spell on the box. Someone would have taken her communication stone. Raising her hands, Adelia created a small yellow ball of magic. Still, it's good that it occurred to her to use another spell that records everything that happens upon arrival at the palace. A cloud of magic, formed into a ball, began to show a recording. Who would dare to steal things from the imperial estate, she wondered, considering the events of today. Here she was having tea with the crown prince. "I met my maids and ladies-in-waiting." The girls then helped her prepare for dinner with the imperial family. Adelia dwelled on what happened next in more detail, because the ball showed Lady Lily Volt rummaging through her chest of drawers. Well, of course she thought it was Lily. Lady Volt is that daring thief. Turning around, Adelia slowly walked towards the window. Having opened it, the girl remembered that she had forgotten to do something. Returning to the bed, she cast a small spell just in case. On the bed, it took the shape of a sleeping body, and the girl thought that no one except the swordsman would understand that it was a fake. Loudly, so that the guards outside the door could hear, Adelia announced that she wanted to rest and asked not to let anyone in until she called. "I obey," the guards answered. The girl took a step through the open window and instantly disappeared into the evening air. Lily Volt was in her room, the window of which was wide open. She couldn't believe how such a woman could become the crown princess, and was completely sure that she had somehow deceived His Highness. Lily is sure that Adelia used her pretty face to seduce the prince. The girl herself had been looking at Prince Lucian with loving eyes for a very long time, and when the imperial family announced the crown princess, Lily really asked her father that she wanted to become the maid of honor for this crown princess, and Count Volt eventually agreed. Lily was going to tell her right away if she found something suspicious in her chambers, but she didn't think that Adelia would bring a communication stone of such excellent quality to the palace. It's very suspicious. She probably got it illegally, the girl is sure. Maybe through it she communicates with her accomplice. Squeezing the stone in her hands, Lily decided that she urgently needed to tell His Highness about this. But before she could finish her thought, a sudden strong wind ruffled her hair. In the shining moonlight, Adelia Vita stood in the dark opening of the window of the maid's room. "What are you going to tell His Highness?" she asked Lily, thereby frightening her. It seemed that the girl was not angry at all and just wanted to hear the answer to her question. But the maid, out of fear, dropped the stone of communication from her hands, and it fell to the floor. Stammering, Lily asked how the lady ended up here, to which Adelia replied that she came through the window. It turns out that a thief had broken into the palace, so she came to catch him and return her things. Saying all this, the girl used magic to pick up the stolen stone. Taking the stone in her hands, she realized that Lily had never used it, and probably didn't even understand with whom this stone allowed her to communicate. The maid did not understand what was happening. The lady continued that even if she understood, she would simply erase her memory. "Why did you need my communication stone?" she asked the girl. But when Lily couldn't say anything intelligible, she continued that it was obvious that she wanted to talk to the one he was set on. If this person had not been connected with the castle, she would have reported on her, said that she was in cahoots with suspicious individuals, and probably thought that having learned about this, Her Majesty would immediately abandon her. Lily realized that Adelia knew her plan, but if this girl had nothing to hide, she would not have entered her room through the window like that. Plucking up courage, she replied that the lady got here through the window, also at night, which means that this stone of communication is definitely here illegally, or she wants to harm His Highness. From such assumptions of the maid, Adelia only grinned. "As a maid of honor, I simply cannot close my eyes to this," Lily screamed. But it seems she has forgotten who made her maid of honor and whom she serves. Adelia did not understand whether she was naive or just stupid. Who would even think of sneaking an illegal stone of communication into the castle? Without permission, it simply would not have gotten here. Even peasant children know about this. Saying all this, Adelia slowly approached the girl, and finding herself close to her, noticed that since she believed that someone wanted to harm His Majesty, then she knew nothing at all about the Crown Prince. Meanwhile, in Prince Lucian's office, the head of the guard was on his knees reporting to the crown prince that his guest was missing. Dawn asked for forgiveness. He felt through the door that her energy had changed and he knocked. There was no one in the room, Lucian asked sternly. The guard's head hit his forehead on the floor, admitting that it was his fault and asking His Highness for forgiveness. Really, after everything that happened, she decided to just run away, the prince thought. The Dawn volunteered to immediately begin the search, but the prince stopped him, not seeing the need for it. He'll take care of it himself. Lily Volt, you're the daughter of a count. You should probably know how the imperial family conducts business, Adelia remarked condescendingly, and her tone made the girl's heart skip a beat. If Adelia had been suspected of something, she would have been executed immediately, even if no evidence had been found. Realizing that she had made an irreparable mistake, Lily began to back away. Adelia continued that only one thing was really important right now, that this communication stone is completely legal. Lily Volt became more and more aware of her mistake. Was the stone really legal? Was the lady really not participating in a conspiracy against the imperial family? But she was so sure that someone was directing her. But if this is not so, then what has she done? When she had nowhere to retreat, Adelia slammed her palm against the wall in front of the girl's face and asked what would happen to her now, because she had made a big mistake. I wonder what will happen if she tells everyone that her communication stone was stolen. Perhaps the maid of honor will be lucky and get off with a light punishment after all. She is the count's daughter. But what if she tells His Majesty personally about this? What do you think? Adelia asked, clasping the girl's throat with her hand. In that case, you can get out. The mistress's voice acquired a threatening tone. Please have mercy. Without hesitation, Lily fell to her knees in front of Adelia. But she only added that she should be grateful that she came to her secretly. Adelia materialized a recording spell. She has all the evidence of the girl's crime, so she can publicly punish her at any time. Lily bowed her head even lower and begged for mercy. She decided to steal from the palace. She'll be lucky if she only loses her arm. She herself knows that she could be locked in prison, or they might even be beheaded. Of course, the punishment does not have to be carried out in front of everyone. She can punish her herself if she wants. And do this until she gets tired of it, Adelia concluded, releasing magical power outward. The maid of honor clung to the mistress's dress, asking to forgive her. She did this out of her stupidity, but she is ready to do anything to be forgiven. Adelia looked with contempt at the count's daughter groveling in front of her. Well, the rules in the palace are indeed sometimes too cruel, she reassured Lily. And she added that she should remain on probation for a week. And after that, she herself will ask to leave the maids of honor and leave the palace. And before the banquet takes place, Lily will have to drink tea with as many noble families as possible. Of course, I will think about my mistakes, the girl began to repent. But then the meaning of what the mistress said came to her, and she raised her head in surprise, asking if she had understood correctly. Adelia repeated that Lily would have to spread rumors about her, saying that the future crown princess dines with the imperial family every evening, that they are already talking about an imminent wedding, and that she has given Ruth Castle, which is now being restored. The girl was taken aback. What if this all turns out to be untrue? It won't turn out that way, Adelia said confidently. As long as you don't insult me and spoil the reputation of the imperial family, you have nothing to fear. At the end of their conversation, the lady asked if Lily could handle it, and she answered so confidently that she would do everything. In the eyes of the maid of honor, the future crown princess changed in an instant. The girl was fully confident that she would be executed or locked in prison if she were in her place. She would immediately run to tell the crown prince about what had happened, or she would have severely punished the thief herself. Don't tell anyone about what happened today, Adelia warned, returning to the window. If you spill the beans, I'll come up with another punishment. Having promised this, Lily thought with delight that she was so strong, but still spared her. Turning around, Adelia stepped out the open window, leaving Lily Volt alone with her thoughts. The lady is so generous and elegant. That's probably why she became the crown princess, the girl said into the void. Lady Adelia is simply amazing. At this time, Adelia, moving with the help of magic to her window, felt a chill run down her back. She noticed the full moon hanging low in the sky without a single cloud. It took longer than she expected. It's time for her to return. A few moments later, she approached the window of her room. Stepping onto the windowsill, she exhaled with relief. It seemed that no one noticed her absence. Realizing this, the girl with a calm soul was about to enter the room. At that moment, someone sharply pulled back the curtain from the side of the room. It was Crown Prince Lucian. Out of surprise, Adelia stumbled and began to fall back. But she was intercepted by a strong male hand, which prevented her from falling and being crushed into a cake. Then the girl was pulled closer to the man by this same hand. "He scared me," thought Adelia, noticing out of the corner of her eye that her room was quite high from the ground. Involuntarily, the girl's hand, which she automatically placed on the prince's chest, felt something hard. Lucian noticed this too. Without realizing what she was doing, Adelia continued to feel the prince's hard chest in admiration. But soon the realization of what she was doing came to her, and the girl in a hurry pulled her hands away, which again almost fell out of the window. And again she was grabbed by strong male hands. This time the man hugged the girl closer to himself, in order to avoid repeated attempts to commit suicide. "Where have you been?" came the question. A few minutes earlier, Lucian and the head of the guard came to the room of the missing guest, and they immediately noticed the window that was wide open. Lucian was again surprised that the girl decided to run away, and Don was still eager to go in search of her, promising not to attract attention. But His Highness reiterated that there was no need for this. Even though there was a protective spell cast on the palace, Adelia could still use magic, and she can easily disappear if she wants. Don was surprised because they signed a contract, to which Lucian replied that next year, when they amend it, he will add a new clause to the terms. The contract does not discuss the possibility of her escaping, which means that if Adelia disappears for a while and returns only to renew the contract, this will not be grounds for its termination. She herself wanted to become the crown princess and even asked for it, so Lucian did not expect that she would decide to run away, and thereby made a mistake. The prince released the head of the guards, saying that he could be free. Left alone in the room, the man headed towards the bed. He threw back the blanket. And immediately I felt a flow of white magic. Adelia is meticulous even when there is no need for it, he thought with a smile. But then a barely audible sound was heard from the window. This seemed suspicious to the prince, and he decided to check what was the source of the noise. Apparently, she hadn't escaped, Lucian decided, pulling back the heavy curtain. But as soon as he jerked his hand sharply, he heard a muffled scream. The frightened girl, taken by surprise, fell from the window. Without hesitation, the man extended his hand to her, and he managed to grab the girl by the waist, preventing her from falling. Then he picked him up, hugging him to himself. At this moment, the man and woman were closer than ever to each other. They looked fascinated into each other's eyes, caught off guard by the awkward situation. "What's so hard? It looks like armor," the girl asked, feeling his chest without a second thought. Gradually it dawned on her, but Lucian could not say a word due to the unusual nature of the situation. Frightened by her actions, Adelia let go of her hands and almost fell again. But she was caught again by Lucian. This time, the prince hugged the girl closer to him so that she would definitely not go anywhere. "Where have you been?" he asked directly. Adelia did not know what to answer. Not a single thought came to her mind, and the prince just stood and waited for her answer. He is too close, the girl noticed. His face prevents her from thinking. Then she put her hands forward, thereby asking the man to move away from her. But it had no effect, as if she was trying to push a stone wall away from her. On the contrary, grabbing the girl by the hands, the prince asked why she was pushing him away. Maybe she wanted to run away again as soon as he let her go. The girl tried to be indignant that he addressed her on a first-name basis, but the man did not seem to hear her and insisted that although the contract did not stipulate such a case, he still would not allow her to escape. Adelia wanted him to let go of her hands, but Lucian was not going to let her go, at least not while the contract was still in force. "That's not the point," the girl noted, blushing. "You're just too close." Realizing what she meant, the prince smiled. "You seem to like the way I look," he remarked, and Adelia thought that this was a huge problem. Still, Lucian let go of the girl and sat down on the sofa, while Adelia nervously paced near the window. Making fun of her turned out to be more fun than the man thought. And he asked if she had cooled down, to which the girl replied that everything was fine. It was already late, but at the same time they asked each other questions. She was interested in what he was doing here, and he was interested in where she had been. And each of them wanted to be the first to hear the answer to their question, not wanting to give in to the other. In the end, the girl gave up and replied that she had just gone away for a minute to return the missing item. "Return it?" Lucian asked with a metallic note in his voice. "Something was stolen from you." "Yes," the girl answered, showing the stone of communication. But now that what was stolen is already with her, everything is in order. This stone belongs to her company, however. It is not for sale. She uses it in her work. The prince was interested in who stole it. If she named the name, he would immediately punish the thief. Remembering Lily, Adelia replied that there was no need. She ordered the thief to leave the palace as soon as possible, and also assigned a small task. But His Majesty could not calm down. Someone dared to steal the thing of a member of the imperial family. For such a crime, her punishment was not serious enough. Adelia thoughtfully said that the imperial family already holds all power in its hands. It is not necessary to punish so harshly for misdeeds every time. Sometimes it is necessary to show mercy. To be honest, this is partly her fault too. Lucian crossed his arms over his chest, not understanding what she meant by this. This stone of communication turned out to be defective. So it is not for sale. Artifacts of white magic sometimes fascinate people. And this stone of communication has a special energy, and it was created with the help of white magic. And this is the energy that enhances human desires. Adelia is sure that the stone fueled the lady's desire to get rid of her, which is why she stole it. If it were an ordinary communication stone, the girl doubted that anyone would want to steal it. But Lucian had never heard of such a thing and asked to look at the subject of the conversation. Not many people know enough about white magic, so this is quite natural, Adelia added, handing the stone to the prince. Feeling the stone in his palm, Lucian did not feel any other manifestations of it. But at that moment the stone came to life, surprising both the girl and the man holding it, and a joyful voice was heard from it. "Finally, boss." In the blink of an eye, Adelia grabbed the stone from the prince's hands and squeezed it tightly. The stone of communication could not withstand the applied forces and crumbled into pieces. Why did he manage to contact me right now? The girl was mentally indignant, cursing her assistant. And she remembered that she was not alone in the room. Lucian watched her reaction and just as calmly asked who it was, but the prince's posture could say a lot about him. Adelia Vita was at a loss, not knowing what to say in her defense. She tried to think of something, but not a single sensible thought came to the girl's head. "Do you have a lover?" Lucian asked, still outwardly calm, causing the girl to be indignant at this assumption. Apparently, that's why, when they drew up the contract, Adelia said that she was not against the prince having a mistress, which means she herself wanted to take advantage of this privilege. The girl was seriously angry. She didn't want to use any privilege, and the prince misunderstood everything. But for Colin to be her lover, never, but she would rather die in splendid isolation. Having calmed down, she explained that it was her deputy Colin. She told him to contact her only at night, since she now lives in the palace. But he did it at the wrong time. "It was not stated in the contract that my bride is allowed to have a lover?" Lucian's voice sounded muffled. "Therefore, he is the only one with whom Adelia is allowed to be." At these words, spoken in a changed voice, the girl looked into the prince's eyes and blushed slightly. The prince misunderstood everything, so he was slightly annoyed by the situation, and this, by the way, is double standards. In the capital, rumors about Adelia Vita spread quickly. The woman who was chosen by the crown prince himself among countless other noblewomen. Everyone wanted to know more about her, but Count Vita stubbornly remained silent. Since Adelia Vita never attended social events and also did not make acquaintances, no one knew anything about her. But suddenly, out of nowhere, Lily Volt, a former maid of honor who worked in the crown prince's palace, appeared and began praising the future crown princess, telling everyone that she had never met such a kind and generous person as Lady Adelia. The ladies gathered at the tea party heard only the opposite rumors, that this girl was terribly evil and that she beat the maids when she lived on the count's estate, so they were very surprised by the new information. Lily calmly asked who was spreading such rumors. After all, Lady Adelia, like a merciful angel, is ready to forgive any misdeeds of the servants, and she was even invited to dinner with the imperial family on the first day in the palace and was allowed to stay with them. That same night, the crown prince visited her chambers, the girl said in confidence, and the rest of the ladies were intensified by such a romantic story. The entire imperial family adores Lady Adelia, and considering how serious the emperor and crown prince are, they are feared and awed by most people. But Lady Adelia is not afraid at all. Lily even heard that the imperial family ordered that she be treated as if she were already the crown princess. Lobelia Vita was also present at this reception and listened to everything that Lady Volt said, experiencing unpleasant feelings. She immediately remembered how the imperial guard had appeared at their home and announced that he had come to pick up Lady Adelia on the orders of the crown prince, and that from now on this girl should be treated like a crown princess. And now, listening to Adelia being called part of the imperial family, Lobelia almost gritted her teeth with anger. "By the way, how did it happen that she and the prince were engaged?" someone asked, and Lily almost choked on her tea because she didn't know this. But quickly pulling herself together, the girl noticed that although she did not know all the details, she was sure that they were in love with each other. It was love at first sight. Mr. Crown Prince and the lady adore each other so much that they are thinking of skipping this red tape with the engagement and immediately having a wedding. And while those around her admired the charming story of life, just like that of the emperor and empress, Lobelia bit her nails with anger because she considered her sister a dummy and also spoiled. How did she manage to pull it all off? What did this cheap thing do? Lobelia was almost hysterical. One of the girls noticed Miss Lobelia and asked if Adelia was not her sister, which made the girl shudder nervously. "Unfortunately, my sister doesn't like me," she answered feignedly. "I didn't even say a word unless it was necessary." Such words surprised the lady. How could this be? After all, they were family and lived in the same estate. Taking on an innocent appearance, as if all this was very upsetting to her, Lobelia said that in fact, her sister went to the palace without warning anyone, and the girl sends her letters every day, but she never answered any of them. Perhaps she likes her new family so much that she has completely forgotten about the real one. "Mistress Adelia would never do that," Lily said, placing the cup on the saucer with a loud sound. "She is busy with business every day," the former maid of honor defended the lady. Lady Adelia is preparing for the upcoming banquet, learning the intricacies of becoming a real crown princess, and also studying the inner workings of the palace, and Lily is sure that she simply does not have time to answer letters. Lobelia smiled tightly, answering that it couldn't be that her sister didn't find a moment to write one single letter. In any case, she would see her at the upcoming banquet. And they will still see. She clenched her fists forcefully under the table. At the holiday, she will remind Adelia where she belongs. How dare this devil behave like this after she killed her own mother at birth? The days of preparation for the banquet went on as usual in the palace. Adelia sighed wearily. Why did they all, literally the entire imperial family, gather in her chambers? And they didn't even bother to come up with an excuse. Although it is obvious to the girl why they are here. Princess Ariana was enthusiastically drawing in her chambers. An hour ago, the princess came to her to eat desserts, and Adelia was delighted to treat the girl. Soon, Lawrence looked into the chambers. He heard that the baby was here and wanted to read with her, so he asked Adelia for permission to sit here too. A couple of minutes later, Lucian appeared and unconvincingly stated that he would like to discuss the stones of white magic, feigning surprise that Ariana was also here, which did not escape the girl's gaze. The last to burst into the chambers was the emperor, who learned that his daughter was here, asking how dare Adelia appropriate her to herself. Of course, there is something to admire here, the girl thought, looking at the male part of the imperial family. But they've been coming to her like this for a week now. How can she work in such an environment? Ariana was drawing next to her, and the girl was sorting out papers that had no end in sight. In addition, she felt the gaze on her. What's wrong with them? Adelia mentally indignantly. These documents contain confidential information about her company. Stop looking here. They are not ordinary people. One glance is enough for them to remember the entire page, and the girl must not let her guard down. However, she really understands their feelings. How can you resist such cuteness as Princess Ariana? The girl finished drawing and asked if Adelia had writing materials. She wanted to write her a letter. The girl replied that there was everything she needed in the top drawer of the table and invited the princess to choose whatever she wanted. The little girl opened the box in anticipation. "Everything is so beautiful," she said in admiration. But while examining the writing paper, the princess noticed something. The girl's heart sank from what she saw. "How can this be?" Ariana whispered barely audibly. She saw handwriting on one of the sheets of paper and realized that it was written in Korean. The girl was very scared and did not know what to do. She looked at Adelia in surprise. Can she ask her about this? The hands that were still holding the paper were shaking slightly. Barely audible, she called Adelia by name. "These leaves are so beautiful. I'll take them." The girl specifically pointed to the leaf on which there was a Korean inscription. And Adelia realized that the princess had noticed them too. She herself didn't even know why she wrote it. The girl didn't think that the baby would see them, but since everything had already happened, she should have explained herself. But how can you do this while there are curious meerkats sitting in the room who realized that something unusual had happened? Clapping her hands as if she had just remembered, Adelia said that she had brought a new dress from her store for the princess and asked if she wanted to try it on. At first, the little girl did not understand what dresses she was talking about, but Adelia winked discreetly and added that she had ordered clothes especially for her, and the princess must have forgotten about it. "Oh, that's right. I want to try it on right now." The girl understood what Adelia wanted, and she promised to bring it immediately. However, not one of the men in the room even moved, as if they had turned on the ignore mode. Then Adelia had to contact them directly. Flashing a smile, the girl apologized that she would have to interrupt their rest. But the princess wanted to try on a new dress, so could they leave them for a minute? "There's a dressing room nearby. We'll wait here." the emperor said. In addition, the man's face lit up. If his daughter has a new dress, he wants to see it. In fact, I'm also planning to try on my outfit, the girl said, smiling even wider. I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave us. The emperor did not understand the reason and really did not want to do this. Adelia waited, still smiling. And yet, the emperor, together with his youngest son, left the room, ordering them to be called as soon as they finished changing clothes. But the third man, as if nothing had happened, took a cup of tea from the saucer. When asked if His Highness was going to leave, Lucian replied no. Ariana is his sister, and Adelia is his fiancée, right? He asked. Nobles aren't supposed to change clothes in the same room unless they're related by blood or marriage. But in this case, he wouldn't be breaking etiquette if he stayed. But when the prince complacently said that he didn't mind if they changed clothes in the wardrobe, Adelia became seriously angry. That's right, the girl remarked quietly. A very interesting thought came to her mind. It's okay if he stays, and the girl began to untie the bow on her chest. They are engaged, after all, but Lucian was wary, understanding what she was driving at. Having finished with the bow, Adelia undid the top button of her blouse. What are you doing? The crown prince asked, blushing and turning away. The girl replied that she was undressing to take off her dress, and did not listen at all to the man's weak attempts to ask her to do this in the dressing room. She does not violate the rules of etiquette. He is her fiancé. Without another word, Lucian stood up and left the room, slamming the door in a hurry. She's actually wearing 2 layers of clothing, Adelia giggled, pleased with the effect. Then she snapped her fingers. The room was enveloped in white magic. This spell will not allow anyone to overhear them, so Ariana can relax. No one will know anything. Adelia suggested we talk in the dressing room. Having settled down in the dressing room, the princess did not dare to be the first to start a conversation. And at that time, Adelia thought that she never expected to get caught so quickly. And she wondered what she could tell her because she knows everything about her life, her past, her present, and even the future of the princess of the empire. It's not worth telling that this whole world is just a book, and she herself moved into this body. The girl was reborn, and did not take over someone else's body like herself. No one in this world should know the truth, otherwise nothing good will come of it. You also remember your past life, Your Highness? Adelia asked, sitting down opposite. And she clarified that she meant a past life in which she knew Korean, and the princess at that time shuddered in surprise. A few years ago, Adelia suddenly remembered the events of her past life, but now she was interested in when it happened to the princess. Ariana remembered everything from birth. She died very early, which must be why she remembered everything her death in that world and how she was reborn in this. The first thing she saw when she opened her eyes here was the emperor and her brothers looking at her. Growing up, the girl was always surrounded by the love of her family. It must have been hard for her to carry such a burden alone, Adelia noted understandingly. But the girl replied that, on the contrary, it was not difficult, unlike her previous life. In this one, she has a family. But she is scared, the princess curled up into a ball. It's scary that one day she will open her eyes and it will turn out that she has returned back. That all this is just a dream. Ariana is very happy here and doesn't want to go back to the way things were before. It was as if an unhappy little girl from a previous life was asking an unhappy adult woman what if they had to go back. Sometimes all this seems like an obsession to the princess. If this is just a dream, then she must return, but she cannot stand it. Tears flowed down the girl's cheeks. You will never return there. This is not a dream. Then there will be no awakening either. Adelia spoke confidently, trying to convey this confidence to the princess. No matter how many times Ariana opens her eyes, she will always be here, along with all of them. Saying this, Adelia took a few steps towards the girl, and squatting in front of her, reminded her that she was a white magician and had a lot of knowledge. Ariana Dekruk will live happily for a very, very long time. Please, believe me, Adelia said, looking into the girl's eyes, because I will try to make it that way. Tears flowed more strongly from the princess's eyes, but now the little girl was experiencing completely different feelings than at the beginning of their conversation. That's right. What a relief, Ariana said when her emotion subsided a little. Adelia asked if she really never wanted to return to that place, and the girl replied that she sometimes thinks about it, but she never wants to return. Well, great, the girl beamed, because the princess will continue to live here. The future of this place in the book is determined, so she will always live happily. Just like the original. Ariana wondered if there were other people who knew about their past life like they did. Probably not, the girl thought. You and I are a very rare case. Adelia has a very capable companion, a light keeper, whom she takes with her, and he says that he has never seen anything like it in his endless years. Adelia thought that it was unlikely that anyone else knew the original, since she was obsessed with this story. But she can't claim that they don't exist, because she's the one who changed the original. Well, the likelihood that they exist is very small. Except for Adelia Vita, almost nothing has changed. If there had been someone else, then the story would have gone completely differently. While Adelia was lost in her thoughts, the princess got up and approached her, shy and nervously rubbing her hands. The little girl was trying to say something. Sitting the girl on her lap, Adelia suggested that she wanted to keep their conversation a secret between the two of them. Of course, she wouldn't tell anyone, and Ariana looked at the girl gratefully. They sealed their secret with a pinky promise. The girl suffered enough in her past life. It was so hard for her, so now that everything has been resolved, it will be much easier. But Ariana added that all this is thanks to the fact that her dad and brothers love her. In fact, when she first opened her eyes, she was very surprised. Dad and brothers were so beautiful, and Adelia could imagine it. Their faces truly deserve admiration for their beauty. Both father and sons, all the men of the imperial family are incredibly beautiful. Hugging the girl, the princess, laughing, said that it was the first time she had seen such beautiful people, and Adelia noticed that she was the most beautiful of all. After the conversation, the girl showed Ariana a hanger with new dresses. The girl's eyes shone with such beauty and the understanding that all these clothes were for her. Because of the conversation, they no longer have time for a long fitting. So the girl suggested starting with one dress, keeping it ready. The baby noticed that the expression on Adelia's face was the same as her dad's when he gives her a gift and waits. One by one, the princess tried on amazing dresses. A lot of time passed before the rack, previously hung with outfits, was empty. I'm tired. Ariana lay on the floor of the dressing room, exhausted. But Adelia still asked the girl to get up and look in the mirror again. And she really liked what the princess saw there, which she immediately reported. And she was so grateful to Adelia that she rushed to hug her, but it was time to show His Majesty the outfits. The emperor and his youngest son waited impatiently for the female half of the family to leave the chambers, indignant that they had been there for so long, as if they were sewing these dresses from scratch. At the same moment, the doors opened, causing the men to freeze in amazement. Dad, brother, a happy and beautiful Ariana ran out to them. His Majesty immediately picked up his princess, admiring how this dress suited her. Lawrence also called her a beauty with a smile. The emperor wanted to immediately call an artist to paint a huge picture and place it on the stairs of the main castle, in addition to the already countless portraits of the adored princess. A small picture can be placed inside the pendant. Lawrence and the emperor offered many more options for where Ariana's portrait could be placed, but Adelia almost didn't listen to them, admiring the beauty of the baby depicted in the paintings, of which there were countless numbers hung around the palace. This is a real family. Let the princess always smile like that, and Adelia will definitely do everything to make her happy. Hugging his daughter, His Highness simultaneously examined the new dress, noting that the quality of Eileen's clothes was very high. The girl explained that she had brought several outfits for the princess. As expected, they all suited her perfectly. "Bring other outfits here, you need to capture her portrait," the emperor ordered, not paying attention to his daughter's objections to the paintings. Someone gently touched Adelia's sleeve, drawing her attention. Lawrence, with a rather sad face, asked if there was anything there for him, not that he needed outfits. Adelia thought with regret that she had taken outfits only for the princess, but promised to take outfits for the prince next time. The boy did not expect this. A little ashamed of asking for it, Lawrence tried to say that there was no need to do this. But his whole appearance spoke of the opposite, and Ariana and Adelia noticed this. And noticing, she laughed in unison. It was an unforgettable atmosphere of friendliness and love. "Now is not even training time, but he is constantly on the parade ground," Adelia stated thoughtfully. "Perhaps something is bothering His Highness," she asked Ariana. But she immediately added that as soon as he saw such a beautiful princess, his worries would immediately disappear, and the little girl wanted to find her older brother as soon as possible. But as soon as Adelia noticed the crown prince, her surprise knew no bounds. "Something incredible happened while I was crying. Prince Lucian literally flew with his sword at the ready, and the girl realized that he was destroying magic by force. Can he really do that? Is he really such a person? So many questions and so few answers." During a break, Lucian turned around and noticed the observers. The princess happily greeted her brother. "Brother, you were so cool!" The little girl rushed into his arms. But Lucian seemed to freeze, staring wide-eyed at Adelia. Ariana tried to tell her brother about the new dresses, but stopped short, because the prince turned around and, without saying a word, left, dumbfounding both his sister and Adelia with his behavior. Out of embarrassment, Lucian literally could not look at the girl and was forced to leave. He just ignored our princess. Adelia couldn't think straight from shock. What's wrong with him all of a sudden? This man couldn't just walk past his sister where she had done something wrong, and the little girl herself was noticeably upset. Was he really so surprised by the beauty of the princess? Adelia thought. He quickly entered the room, forcefully slamming the door behind him. It was the first time in his life that Lucian had experienced such embarrassing feelings. The memory kept coming back to how the girl unbuttoned her buttons, intending to change clothes in front of him. Then, for the first time, he became embarrassed and was forced to turn away. She's not a child, the man felt unbearably hot. He walked nervously from side to side, remembering all her words. What does it mean? She takes off her things to undress, and it was said in such a tone. I'm taking off things, I'm taking off things. It was as if a record had stuck in his thoughts. Lucian couldn't think of anything else. Has he gone crazy? Really out of his mind? A heavy fist fell on the table. Why I ran away from there? The man no longer understood anything. Suddenly, the door suddenly opened, as if someone had opened it with their foot, and the prince looked around in confusion, not expecting anyone. It was Princess Ariana, and she looked a little unusual. I hate you, brother, the girl screamed from the doorway. Don't pretend anymore that we know each other. And she quickly ran away. Lucian was literally petrified, not understanding what it was just now. The library occupied a huge hall in a remote part of the palace. Adelia was interested in the Book of Spells, which is why she came to the library. Ariana was very offended by her older brother and ignored him, although Lucian tried in every possible way to appease her with gifts and even asked for forgiveness on his knees. She, of course, feels sorry for the princess, but thanks to this, the girl can finally spend time alone. Kai found some mana stones, so it's time to make some artifacts. Having found the right shelf, Adelia was surprised she was told that the necessary book was somewhere here. Are these all books related to artifacts? After studying this huge number of books for a long time, Adelia finally got a headache. No matter how hard she searches, none of this looks like healing water. Sometimes there are murders and kidnappings in the Empire. Where the hell are they treated? If the story develops as in the original, then it will have a happy ending. But the problem is that the process itself is not a happy one. In addition, she has already become a change in the original, so now she does not know what will happen. You will have to create artifacts, taking into account the future of each of them. And yet now the girl decided to rest a little, and her gaze fell on a large number of books around. If you think about it this way, they say that there is a lot of forbidden literature in the Imperial Library. Could there be something about obsession here? Adelia stood up and slowly walked around the entire hall. Around one of the turns, she discovered a small, dark nook. There on the rack, there were books all with covers in red tones. Taking one of them, Adelia froze in surprise. Why the Lady Gave the Night White Bread, The Duke's Secret Hobby, Day and Night with the Archduke, all books had similar ambiguous titles. And the girl embarrassedly realized that the forbidden books, which had been kept for many generations, were pornographic. She noticed a book with a very intriguing title, The Emperor on the Empress's Leash. Adelia took it in her hands and began to read. Imagination helpfully drew pictures of the stories being described. One is more frank than the other. The girl experienced very conflicting feelings, but she still closed the book, deciding that that was enough for today. They keep such nice things just for themselves, and she thought with admiration that she should come here more often. The next day, Adelia and Princess Ariana walked through the garden. The little girl was interested in why the girl had been so busy lately. Always when she comes to see her, Adelia is not there, and she's so bored the girl was indignant. The girl apologized lately she had been overwhelmed with work, so she spent all her time in the library. And also, she makes gifts for the princess and members of the imperial family, which Ariana was very surprised by because she already receives gifts from Adelia every day. But the girl stroked the baby's head and asked her to just accept them. Living like this is a huge task for a princess. A strand of pink hair slipped into Adelia's hands. Then and now, she added. Then the girl invited the princess to walk a little more and then have a snack in the gazebo in the garden, to which the girl happily agreed. There was tea and a variety of desserts to go with it on the table. A bun with cream, Ariana noted with delight, taking the same bun with both hands. But Adelia corrected that this was not just a bun with cream and asked to break it in half, which the princess did, finding chocolate cream inside. The little princess, devouring a delicious bun, looked like a squirrel, and Adelia invited her to try it with strawberries, since now they are in season, so they are sweet and very tasty. I love not just strawberries, but strawberry tart, the girl said dreamily. But Adelia objected that the princess was still growing, so she needed to eat a lot of fruit. And she handed the girl a strawberry on a fork, asking her to open her mouth. The girls had fun in the garden, and guards stood around. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed, and a bright flash cut through the air. Adelia was the first to sense danger. An arrow was approaching them at great speed, and she was aiming straight at Princess Ariana. The guards immediately took out their weapons, ready to protect the members of the imperial family. But what could they do against the arrows flying from nowhere? Adelia raised her hands, but remembered with horror that she could not show white magic here. But she must protect the princess, even with ordinary mana. All this took a split second. Adelia rushed to the princess, covering her with her body and creating a protective barrier of mana. But the defense formed too slowly, and one arrow reached its target. The girl felt a burning pain in her back, where the arrow had pierced her body and began to fall. As he fell, he pushed Ariana and she hit the ground painfully, but fortunately, she was not injured anymore. But the girl herself fell on her side, losing her balance from pain, and a huge arrow was sticking out of her back. "Sister!" Ariana called to the girl, stunned, trying to get up. "No, not yet," thought Adelia. "If I get caught behind white magic, then all my plans will turn into foam." The girl was in hellish pain, but she could not do anything about it and only listened to the princess calling her. But there was something else, a feeling like poison in the body. The moment when she loses her mind, as if she is going to die. "No, you can't die." Ariana was next to Adelia, forcing her to open her eyes. The baby didn't understand what happened and who was to blame, and the girl just tried to calm her down, saying that everything was fine. The princess, with tears in her eyes, asked why Adelia had substituted herself for her, but then the guards arrived with help. In an intermittent voice, the girl asked the princess to go into the room, since it could still be dangerous here. But the baby didn't want to. She was too worried about her and wanted to stay close. Without listening to the girl, Adelia used a magic spell, instantly transporting her, right in front of the amazed guards, to the palace. Then she asked the guards to help her pull out the arrow. The girl was already on the verge of losing consciousness, and the guards still hesitated and did not want to pull out the arrow, since she might die from bleeding. Adelia began to get angry because these idiots did not want to obey. "Damn it, she can't die like this!" "Adelia!" came a heart-rending male cry. Lucian ran towards them as fast as he could. He was very tired from running, but it was also clear that he was very worried about her, and the girl was even glad to see him. But then her gaze grew dim, and she lost consciousness. The prince managed to catch her and tried to bring her to consciousness. Anger rose in the man's soul who dared to so brazenly attack a member of the imperial family. Opening her eyes, the girl noticed his expression and was surprised that he could be like that. While holding the girl to himself, Lucian accidentally touched an arrow protruding from her back, causing her to scream, experiencing pain piercing her body. "Why are you so stupid?" The man was indignant. "You were going to endure it to the limit." Barely audible, Adelia asked him to get her out quickly. Lucian noticed her gaze and realized that she was speaking deliberately and seriously. He clenched his teeth, preparing for his next action. He firmly grabbed the arrow by the protruding end and pulled it out with force. The girl let out a heart-rending cry of pain, and then she went limp in his arms with relief. The prince was afraid to move, lest he hurt her again. Adelia, having gotten rid of the poisoned arrow, finally decided to use white magic to stop the bleeding. Lucian looked at her with bated breath. Then he turned his gaze to the arrow. It was a killing arrow, but something else caught his attention. The arrowhead was coated with poison. The man's hands trembled with anger, and this was also supplemented by a tingling sensation from poison. He resolutely picked the girl up in his arms, intending to carry her to the palace. "Take the arrow," he ordered the guards, and for some time he ordered the frightened guards to be more careful, and in addition, to wait for the cleaners. Who could have done this so brazenly in the imperial palace? The prince thought furiously. He carried the weakened girl to her chambers. "He will definitely catch you and take revenge twice, no, 10 times stronger." Soon they found themselves in Adelia's room. The maids were horrified when His Majesty brought the wounded lady into the room. They immediately began to worry loudly, which only made Adelia wince. The crown prince noticed that they were making too much noise and ordered them to immediately call the imperial family and leave themselves. Adelia opened her eyes wide and looked at Lucian. The man noticed this and immediately rushed towards her. He was interested in whether she was okay, and the girl, in turn, asked if everyone had left. And having received the answer that yes, and there was still a little time before all the members of the imperial family arrived, she immediately crossed her arms over her chest, allowing white magic to envelop her body. Her wounds and scratches were healing right before her eyes. "Thanks to you, Your Highness, I survived." The girl turned to the prince. This time it was really dangerous. Just a little more and she would have died. "Well, Even the scars won't remain, but that doesn't matter. A couple of new scars won't make any difference anyway. Are you really crazy? She heard the question and turned around in surprise. Excitedly covering his face with his hands, Lucian was indignant that she had come to this because she was hiding her white magic. It didn't fit into his head that just because of something like this she almost died. He didn't listen to what the girl was trying to explain to him. Looking up, Lucian said with excitement, even shouted, that she really could have died. Adelia froze in amazement, not expecting such an emotional reaction from the prince. He immediately apologized for yelling at her. He didn't mean to get angry and just thanked her for saving Ariana. It was good that she was there too, but the man wanted to know if she herself was okay. She is a white magician and very strong, but still, she is also an ordinary person. And while he was saying all this, the girl noticed how his hands were shaking. Prince Lucian was actually very worried. "Your Highness," the girl said quietly, "I did what everyone would do. Adults must protect children. That's why they're adults and children. Children behave like children and adults behave like adults." Lucian was shocked by her words. Adelia noticed that she was a white magician, but not that strong in fact. If she had not hidden her white magic, she would not have been able to do anything. But Lucian did not let her finish, and the girl was surprised at his tone. "Not everyone can risk their lives to protect others," the prince said. A little earlier, Adelia and Ariana had just come to the gazebo to drink tea and eat desserts. Lucian watched their interaction from the palace window with a smile, and his eyes filled with horror when he saw what happened there later. He forever remembered how Adelia covered his little sister. And as they fell to the ground together, Ariana was outwardly fine, but Adelia was wounded by an arrow in the back. It is impossible to describe all the horror that he experienced at that moment. "Not everyone can do that," said the prince, and knelt down in front of the girl's bed. "What a relief that she is a white sorceress and is safe," he continued, surprising Adelia more and more with his actions and words. It was the first time he felt so powerless because she was a white magician. Some time has passed. Exhausted, the girl soon fell asleep. Lucian approached her bed and wanted to touch her, but the cocoon of white magic around her prevented him from doing so. Is she really shrouded in white magic even in this state? The man wondered. This is the unconscious inner instinct of the white sorceress, he wondered. Or her own will. "No one will harm you here," he said barely audibly. The door to the room opened and Lucian turned around. Ariana, Lawrence, and the Emperor ran into the room worriedly. Lucian immediately asked them to be quiet, and they all left the room. But the girl was very worried about Adelia, and crying asked how she was. Lawrence was also very worried about the girl, so Lucian again repeated that she had only recently fallen asleep, asking the children to be quiet. Lawrence agreed ashamedly, and the little girl hesitantly touched her older brother's shirt. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Adelia saved her, and now she was in this state because of her. But the brother, hugging her, assured that it was not because of her. The little girl didn't think so. She was sure that she was to blame. After all, it was she who suggested going outside. If only it weren't for her, Adelia wouldn't have had to stand up for her, and this wouldn't have happened to her. "Ariana," Lucian said clearly, sitting down opposite the girl, "it was Adelia's choice. She values you, therefore, not wanting you to get hurt. She substituted herself for you." The rest of those present also understood this. "Do you think she wanted you to feel such remorse?" Lucian asked, making the girl think. And he added that by blaming herself like this, she denies Adelia's choice, and when she wakes up, she will be able to thank her. Lucian was right, and she should thank her rather than apologize. The Emperor agreed. He took his daughter in his arms and suggested that she wash and change clothes first, so Adelia would also be happy. "Dad!" the girl cried, clinging to her father. The man stroked the girl on the back, comforting her. And at the same time, he thought that he would have to deal with a lot. If not for Adelia, his daughter would be lying there now. No, his daughter is too fragile. She probably wouldn't be able to survive. Even thoughts about this made the Emperor convinced that he would kill everyone for her, and something incomprehensible, but very frightening, formed around the man. Lucian noticed this and asked his father to calm down, because there was a sick person in the room, but he did not have time to finish. Suddenly, an incomprehensible sound was heard from that very room. Everyone else heard him too, and stared at the door in horror. The Emperor instantly handed Ariana into Lawrence's hands and ordered her to be taken to the room. The boy immediately rushed to carry out the order, realizing that something terrible was happening. "Nox, sword," the ruler said, addressing his knight, and immediately received it. Lucian also took his sword out of its sheath and held it at the ready. The Emperor and Crown Prince resolutely walked towards the room where the sound came from. The door opened barely audible. An unfamiliar man stood by Adelia's bed, and his hands were feeling the girl's body. From this sight, Lucian was overcome with great anger, and his hands, which were already tightly gripping the sword, trembled violently. The blonde young man put one hand on the girl's forehead and the other on her chest, clearly thinking about something. He didn't even pay attention to the people who entered, silently continuing to do what he was doing. Why? The stranger was indignant. How dare ordinary people brazenly stand in front of me? He noted the identical black hair and red eyes of the people who entered, and I realized that these were probably the descendants of that same Dekrak. The man only smiled slightly at his thoughts. "Who are you? How did you come here?" the emperor asked menacingly. The stranger repeated his question measuredly, intending to answer, but Prince Lucian interrupted him. Pointing the sword in his direction, the prince demanded the stranger to move away from the girl. Well, of course, the stranger noticed, behavior typical of the descendants of the Dekrak family. How dare they threaten him? "Don't you know who I am?" The man's face took on a threatening grin. The emperor felt a familiar energy emanating from him. Could it be a white magician? Lucian felt it too, but couldn't believe it. He had never heard of the two white magicians. Who then was the girl sleeping on the bed? Adelia could hardly open her eyes from the noise. "Kai," she called, also feeling the energy of white magic. "How noisy you are." The stranger immediately leaned towards the girl, calling her mistress and asking what happened to her, to which Adelia asked why he looked like that, and he was not her Kai. The young man closed his eyes, transforming with the help of magic, and a moment later a large white wolf stood in the room, and the girl smiled joyfully. Now this is her Kai. She tried to tell her that she had recently encountered a strange force, but the guard leaned his forehead against her and asked her not to talk. A warm golden glow grew between the girl and the wolf. Kai independently saw everything that happened to her, the flying arrow, and how she covered the little girl with her body. And what he saw excited him greatly. She would not have been able to defend herself. It would have been nice if Adelia had not remained in history as a sorceress who died early. Such tenderness of his bride with a stranger, even if he was a wolf, greatly alarmed Lucian. "You are the keeper of the light?" the prince asked, having guessed, and the wolf confirmed. "Get away from Adelia." Lucian's voice sounded threatening, as did the sight of the sword in his hand, but this did not frighten the guard. The emperor asked his son to stop. His gaze was focused on the uninvited guest. He did not think that he would ever see the keeper of the light in his life. Finally, everyone calmed down and dispersed around the room. The emperor and his son sat down on the sofa, but the guard lay down on the bed at the girl's feet, like a faithful dog. Lucian was still unhappy with the situation. Kai looked at the crown prince defiantly. Finally, the prince said that he heard that after signing the contract with Adelia, he went on a trip, so he was very busy, to which the wolf proudly confirmed that it was so. But if the mistress calls, he will rush in at any time. Now her white magic is weak, so she called him instinctively. And he saw the mistress's recent memories. The guard's voice became serious. An arrow enchanted with magic was aimed at the heart, but the mistress broke it before it went through. Anyone who is shot with such an arrow will certainly die. If it weren't for white magic, Adelia would already be dead. And the heirs of the Dekrak blood were unable to protect my person, and she ended up in this state. The guard's voice changed. Metallic notes appeared in it. The emperor said that they owed her a huge debt for the rest of their days. Kai noted that such a debt could not be repaid in a lifetime, and Lucian only humbly lowered his head, agreeing with this. The prince was very worried about Adelia. At this time, hurried small steps were heard along the corridor. And Kai, hearing them, turned to the door, ready, if anything happened, to protect the mistress. The emperor tried to say something, but then the doors to the room swung open noisily, and a heartbreaking cry was heard from a little girl calling her sister. Lawrence, who arrived a couple of seconds after Ariana, tried to stop her, indignant that she was so small but so fast. "Who are you and what's wrong with our sister?" the princess asked belligerently, clutching a twig in her hands like a sword. But then she saw who the stranger was, and her mouth opened in surprise. Because in Adelia's room, there was a large white wolf with a golden glow. "Wolf?" the children said with horror at the same time. And at that time, Kai looked at them carefully, because the girl was definitely different from the others in some way. "You are also from the Dekra clan," he said, and Ariana shuddered in surprise. But this baby also has two names, the guard realized. He was sure that Adelia's case was the first and the last. Besides, even if they are similar in some ways, they are completely different. "You are an incredible person, just like your owner," he approached the frightened girl. And Ariana asked if he was the keeper of the light that her sister was talking about, and the wolf nodded in the affirmative. And then something happened that made the girl petrify. The wolf licked her and said that she smelled sweet, not like the others. Lawrence was literally horrified, and the emperor was seriously worried about his daughter. "You can't eat Ariana." The brother immediately hugged the girl to himself. But a strong male hand was already hurrying towards them. Emperor Dekrak picked up his daughter in his arms and stood right in front of the guard, protecting his children. "Baby, this is disgusting," he reassured the girl, stroking her head and removing the wolf's drool from her pink hair, which made the wolf indignant, because this is a holy liquid that can heal any wounds. And only Lucian sighed tiredly, watching the unfolding scene without getting up from the sofa. His gaze involuntarily fell towards the girl lying on the bed. He mentally asked the girl to wake up quickly. Everyone was waiting for her to wake up. As if hearing him, the girl slowly opened her eyes. How much time has passed? Adelia thought, getting up in bed. And then Ariana rushed into her arms. Through her crying, the girl asked her for forgiveness, but Adelia did not understand why she was doing this. Behind her, both Lawrence and the Emperor asked if the girl was okay. Adelia responded in surprise that she was completely fine. And even Prince Lucian was interested in her condition. He looked very worried and a little guilty. This surprised the girl very much. But at the same time, she remembered something. She remembered their conversation before she fell asleep, how Lucian worried about her, the look on his face when he realized that she had almost died. "Yes, thanks to your highness, I'm fine," the girl replied, smiling. From such a smile from his bride, the prince blossomed. "I'm here too, mistress." Kai appeared from under the ground nearby, which surprised the girl, but immediately explained that she called him herself. Ariana was still pouring tears into the girl's blanket, asking for forgiveness for what happened. But she remembered her older brother's words that by blaming herself, she was denying Adelia's choice. "Thank you, sister," the girl said, without raising her head. Adelia breathed a sigh of relief. She is glad that the princess is safe. The princess's brothers and the emperor were also relieved that everything ended well, and that the little girl stopped blaming herself. The girl stroked the baby's head, reassuring her that everything was okay. But then I began to wonder if everything was really all right. If not for her, Ariana would likely be dead, or even more likely injured so seriously that her life would be in danger. Did something so dangerous happen when she read this story? No, if such a serious incident happened, it could not help but appear in the original work. Then is it really because of her? Is it really she who changed the course of history? The only thing that changed from the original was her, and whether her presence affected the original story enough to change it. Suddenly, someone's warm hand fell on her head. It was Lucian who became concerned that the girl's face was pale and decided to check her temperature while asking if she had any pain. Adelia smiled and answered in the negative, and immediately asked if they had caught the criminal. But the criminal had not yet been caught. He disappeared without leaving a trace. "Now this cannot be changed," the girl thought, stroking the princess, "and all that remains for her is to make sure that the ending will be happy. For her part, she will do whatever is required." The day of the long-awaited banquet has arrived. The ladies gossiped that Lady Vita, the bride of the crown prince, was supposed to appear today. And it seems that the rumors turned out to be true usually. A place next to the imperial family is not prepared for those who are engaged. But today, there were 4 thrones in the usual place. It seems that the crown prince's wedding will be announced today. It must be true that they are so passionately in love with each other that they skipped the engagement ceremony and got married straight away. It seems so romantic. But at the same time, there were rumors that the bride was so weak that she could not even go outside. The girls did not stop gossiping, revealing more and more new details, such as rumors that she was a sorceress, and among the nobles there were few such daughters, and the purpose of this marriage was to mix the blood of a rare sorceress with the imperial family, and most likely, after the appearance of an heir, she would be kicked out. Colin, who overheard these conversations, thought with a grin that the head had many enemies. But no matter how hard they tried to bring her down, they would not even come close to her feet. After a short time, Colin spoke with the head using the communication stone, and the girl was surprised that he had already prepared everything. The assistant added that the head should just come, and she thanked him. Soon, Prince Lucian joined Adelia. Sitting down next to the bride on the sofa, he asked where her deputy was, to which Adelia replied that he had decided to check out the banquet hall and assess the atmosphere inside. The girl noticed that the crown prince was using the artifact that she gave him. Touching the brooch on his collar, Lucian noticed that this decoration was created by the white magician himself. They say that even His Majesty the Emperor and Lawrence do not know how to separate it from the body. Adelia replied that it took a long time to perform protective magic, cleansing magic, and restoration magic, but she was proud of her work. If you press the spinel, the magic of invisibility will be activated, and no one will be able to detect it. This will be useful for hiding magical or physical presence when the light of the stone goes out. It will need to recharge its magical power again, so it will have to come to her. At the last words of the girl, Lucian thought and embarrassedly asked how often this should be done. Depends on the use, Adelia answered. The magical power of the artifact will be practically used if you use the power twice in danger of life, or use special magic 3 times. If you don't use anything, it will last for about 3 months. But the girl didn't finish, as she paid attention to the prince's condition. You're blushing, something hurts, the girl asked him, and Lucian hastened to answer in the negative but carefully looked away. Adelia sincerely did not understand what was happening to him. Plucking up courage, the prince asked if she knew about the rumors that were circulating in social circles, those rumors that she had spread using an errant maid, that they were passionately in love. And the girl confirmed, adding that today they should become true, to which Lucian was very surprised, blushing even more. Adelia explained that all he needed was to be close to her. If the crown prince approached her first, then everyone would believe the rumors. But if it's too difficult, say right away that you don't want to, the girl added, but stopped short when she heard the prince's words. Without looking at the girl, Lucian agreed to try to pretend to be in love. And he added that they should practice, which made Adelia surprised. Call me by name. Lucian looked into the girl's eyes and gently touched her cheek with his hand. Adelia's heart skipped a beat. She was ready to say his name, but the emperor and Lawrence entered the room and froze, stunned by what they saw. The ruler immediately closed his youngest son's eyes and noticed that they seemed to have disturbed them, and if they needed more time, then let them come later. Then they left as if nothing had happened, not paying attention to the girl's indignation that they had come too early. A few minutes later, the entire imperial family, with the exception of Princess Ariana, headed to the banquet hall. Ready? Lucian asked the girl, holding out his hand to her. Ready, Adelia smiled sweetly. As soon as the heavy door to the banquet hall opened, the herald announced His Majesty the Emperor, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness the Prince and Lady Adelia Vita had arrived. Surprised whispers immediately swept through the hall as to whether this was the same Lady Vita, and she entered along with His Majesty. It looks like there really is a new crown princess about to appear. Ladies and gentlemen wondered why she had never appeared in social circles before, because she was indeed very beautiful. Kolan listened carefully and with incredible pride to people's conversations about how the head and the prince were truly a beautiful couple. Bless the bright sun of the empire, the guests said in unison as the entire imperial family took their seats. As everyone knows, the emperor began, the Festival of Abundance is a banquet in honor of the Harvest Festival. Representatives of leading companies from all over the country are also present at the banquet, the ruler continued. But the eyes of all those present were not directed at him. Adelia also noticed this, and was worried that, at this rate, they would soon see a hole in her, to which the prince remarked with a chuckle that, since even such looks could burn through her, then she should give up her position as a white magician. The girl did not answer, but her gaze was very stern, which only aroused the amusement of Lucian, who noticed that her eyes were terribly scary. For the first time in 7 years, the number of seats next to the emperor had increased, and everyone was trying to take it, so she could well be proud to be sitting here. And Adelia understood this very well, although it was uncomfortable. All they can do is just look at her. The crown prince smiled softly, and he asked the girl to look into the hall, which she did. It seems they are about to go crazy, asking a lot of questions. Do you think they want to bite you? Lucian asked playfully. No, I'd rather take them, the girl said, looking down and smiling slightly. The prince was very pleased with her answer and smiled softly. The guests watching the ruling family could not help but notice this smile and were quite shocked by it. They could not believe their eyes. The emperor finished his speech and invited the guests to enjoy the banquet. The feast went on as usual. People communicated and established social contacts. After some time, Adelia expressed a desire to go down to the hall. Little sister, try hard, don't be scared. Lawrence immediately decided to cheer up the girl, but she asked them not to worry about her. Everything would be fine. Adelia was about to leave, but Lucian touched her hand with his hand, asking her to stay. The girl shuddered in surprise, but obediently stopped, asking His Highness what had happened. Lucian, said the prince, gallantly kissing the back of the girl's hand, you must call me by name. Adelia was embarrassed by his unexpected action, and the man was very pleased with the girl's reaction. Lucian, the girl said, embarrassed. Have fun and come back, Adelia, the prince said, running his fingers over the girl's palm, releasing her. And Adelia hurried to continue her journey. But the girl's face was filled with embarrassment, and her heart was pounding wildly from what had just happened between them. Lily Volt was chatting with her friend at a banquet when she saw a girl coming down to them. "Lady Adelia!" she exclaimed joyfully. Adelia, although surprised, was still glad to see a familiar face, and asked how Lily was doing. And when the girl replied that she worked a lot, as the lady said, Adelia noted with a smile that the rumors had even reached the imperial palace. And she praised Lily, which made her blush a little. Then another girl approached them, greeting Adelia. So one by one, many ladies wanted to meet the crown prince's bride and introduce themselves. But soon several more girls headed towards them, and Adelia was quite surprised. It was a beautiful girl with purple hair, accompanied by two other girls. "Nice to meet you, Lady Vita," the girl said. And although she smiled friendly, Adelia was wary of her appearance. She returned Princess Oder's greeting, and she remarked that she was honored to know her. And Adelia wondered how anyone could not know Duke Oder's only princess. The girl behind her new friend also greeted Adelia, and when Adelia replied that she was pleased to meet all of them, she added that, having seen her, she was newly impressed. After all, she thought that Miss Lobelia Vita was the only daughter of Count Vita's family, and her tone changed from friendly to hostile. The surrounding ladies also said that they had never seen Adelia in this hall. It must be because Miss Lobelia is so outstanding. Adelia herself already understood perfectly well what was happening here, especially after she said that Miss Lobelia was beautiful and second in fame after Princess Odora. Smiling widely, the girl replied that she remained on the estate because she was in poor health. What she really regrets is that if she had recovered earlier, she would have been able to meet Lucian earlier, and the girls were horrified that she dared to call the prince simply by his name. Princess Odora said through gritted teeth that Lady Vita was also a noble woman, since she could be so ignorant. "Oh, I made a mistake because I'm used to calling him by name," Adelia said, feigningly, blushing with embarrassment. But, despite his status, His Majesty allowed calling each other by name, and he himself calls her Adele. The ladies literally burst with anger. Trying to behave herself, Princess Odora said that she heard that she and the prince met for the first time at the prom. It was amazing. Usually, it is difficult to get close to him so quickly. Moreover, who they are talking about is the crown prince. His Majesty was never interested in women, and he almost did not communicate with other nobles. Much less, he never had lovers. This is true, Adelia noted, but human relationships are timeless and defy any explanation, especially when it comes to relationships between a man and a woman. Isn't it so? Adelia asked innocently, watching her interlocutor's face distort with anger.